lives. You all have dogs that will run across, and kids and employees, and the phone that rings, and the emails, and all of those other things. For the first time ever, or maybe many times, especially if you're already in this community, I'm asking you to step out of your business and work on it instead of in it. Your time is very, very valuable. I need you to make sure that you keep yourself muted, and we are not doing this as a webinar format. The reason why we don't do this as a webinar format and we do it as a Zoom is because I want you to see each other. I want you to see each other's faces. I want you to get to know each other. And I want you to be able to also understand and hear and look at the person that's talking. So I'm going to ask you to mute yourself unless you are the speaker. Who we are in this community that you're kind of just stepping into as a part of this webinar is we are a absolutely no BS type of community. I run all my webinars that way. I run my coaching programs that way because your time is valuable and you can go get smoke blown up you know where in other places, and that is not what we're about. You don't have time for that. That costs you too much money. This is going to be real conversations. There is absolutely going to be no BS. We are not here to waste your time. At some point, you're going to be distracted and the phone's going to ring and somebody's going to pull you away. What I want to tell you about that is please take this time. This time is for you to grow your business. There's going to be times when a speaker's going to be speaking, you're going to think, I know that. Listen anyway, because I promise you, you don't. Be here for everything that they have to say. Also, what you need to understand is I need you to honor these speakers. Who these speakers are, they are giving you 30 minutes of their time. They are coming to you to give back to you. There is no other place where you can go to where you can talk to an attorney that absolutely loves our industry. John has made it his life mission to serve the hospitality industry, if you can imagine that, somebody that actually likes us and understands us. You are going to meet HR people that also have made it their mission to serve this industry. Edie's going to talk to you about I'm sorry, I'm watching kind of all these people come in, so I'm getting a little distracted. But Edie is going to talk to you about like finding your space. She's going to talk to you so much more than just about the process of a physical space. You're going to have the opportunity to learn from Darrow, who is here, on how to sell your business, even if you're not ready to sell it or think that you cannot sell it. You're going to learn from Halima, who's here, that's part of the Burnt Chef project out of the UK. It's all about mental health in culinary. It's exploding over there. I have gathered speakers for you that are giving you their time, and you can ask them questions. Also, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to make sure you get the questions that you need answered as well. I'm going to go into that in just a minute. There are a couple of people that helped put this whole summit on that I can't move forward unless we say thank you. One of which is Heather. She's in your screen. Say hi, Heather. Heather is my director. You know, she says no, but also she is amazing at thinking through the processes of things. This would not happen without her. There's another person that's going to pop in. Her name is Amanda. She's our marketing director. She makes everything look so beautiful. She has done summits before. She is the reason why also that all of this was put together so well for you. I have this concept of hiring up. You should always, always hire people better than you. And here's one that's going to piss you all off. You should hire people that cook better than you. bake better than you, run a business better than you. Your job is to be the visionary and the leader of your company. It is not to measure flour and chop onions. Your job is to run a business that makes this world better. That is your job. And you're going to learn from people whose job is to do that in their unique industry for us. That's what you're going to learn from today. So here's the deal on questions. You're going to have a ton. I promise you they're going to be answered. What I cannot promise you is they're all going to be answered today. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Anytime a speaker is speaking, in the bottom of your screen, and I believe it's under reactions, there's a little hand raise. Keep yourself muted, raise your hand, okay? We're going to give a little bit of time after each speaker so that you can ask them questions. You have direct access to them to ask them questions. I'm also going to ask them what their contact information is that we can also put in the chat as well. Many of these speakers will have a complimentary gift for you that if you want to take advantage of it, it was specifically designed for you. They are providing this for you on top of their time. Now, the other bigger way to get your questions answered on the 17th, at this very same time that you showed up today, let me say it again, on the 17th, in about a week, we are going to go deeper with what we talked about here. You can ask any and all questions, and you are also going to get a survey after this call asking you one very specific question. That on the 17th, we're going to not only dive deeper into your biggest struggles, we're going to get your questions answered from this workshop, if we didn't get them answered here, and more. And we're going to continue to learn from each other. No, it is not going to cost you. Heather dropped the link in the chat so that you can have it, and you will have all the information. We good? Okay. We're going to go ahead and start. Again, thank you all for coming. We are going to go ahead and start with Edie. Again, if you have not muted yourself, please mute yourself. Hi, Edie.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I want you to introduce yourself because you will do that so much better than me.
Sure. Thank you again for having me.
You're
It's good to
welcome.
be here with you all this morning. My name is Edie Weintraub. I have been in retail real estate for the last 20 years. And when I first started, I realized that while I loved working with Famous Footwear in Party City, I would open a store, I'd look around, and I'd say, where are all the people? And having been in food and beverage all throughout college, in the nightclub industry as a promoter, I said, I need to blend this mix of real estate with my love of hospitality. So I have now focused on that for the last 18 years of my career and love seeing emerging brands grow.
Thank you. Okay. So when we were talking about, you said this concept of finding your space. And you said it's more than just the physical location of finding a space. You talked about things like picking the space, and you said it's about exposure, it's about physical location, it's about an audience, it's about all these things that come together. And then you said something very interesting about moving too slow. So, and how much that cost you in business. So I want to start with, before we go to time and slow, I want to start with this concept of finding your space. Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. So I love secret shopping restaurants. And before I reach out to any brand, I secret shop them. I look at, is their staff happy? Is the restaurant clean? Is it operating efficiently? Having been in food service myself, I'm sitting back and just looking at, I love going out to dinner by myself or for a drink by myself because there's so much that you can absorb during that time. And so I'm very observant about what's going on. And so finding your place is so much more about, I need to open another location. It's about, who is your audience? Where do you want to be? Who do you anticipate working with you? Are you accessible to mass transit, or does everybody need to drive to you? So a lot of these pieces are pieces that I help emerging brands look at, because again, they're in knee deep in operations, they're knee deep in value engineering or lowering the price of certain ingredients. And so again, they're not sometimes able to take a step back and look at what is working. You know, is this truly the community that I want to be a part of? Or is this just not resonating correctly? And maybe I need to shift. A lot of the brands that we work with have multiple concepts. And one concept is great for a bubble tea shop and macarons, but the other concept is sit down, full service, internationally, variety of dishes, dinner experience. And so the audiences for those two are very different. And so you have to put that hat on for that specific brand in order to understand how you can grow and find your next location.
I want to talk a little bit more about location, because you said some things there that I want to take it past the physical space. There are some people here today that have commercial kitchens, they have lease spaces, but they're not necessarily, we'll call, open to the public. Maybe there's a grab and go, maybe they deliver everything, maybe it's a ghost kitchen concept, those types of things. But you know, so many people look for kitchens because they just need one. Like they'll take anything that they can get wherever. Kind of talked about the space
Yeah.
and talk to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a client right now who, sadly, had been in the dessert space, decided to move, didn't have the time to sell, just completely closed all of her shops. And she decided to come back. She said, I miss being in the kitchen. I miss people enjoying my food. And she's looking to open a private meal delivery company. And she said, Edie, I need a kitchen. I said, okay. Um, we're a little tapped out. We're in Metro Atlanta. There's zero ghost kitchen space available, but there are a lot of cafes at the base of office buildings that, because people are not back 5 days a week, those folks ended up closing. And so those spaces are available and are just sitting there. So I said, I think I got some opportunities for you. And so it's really more, again, relationship oriented. Even though I was representing her and looking at more locations for her dessert company, we did not end up executing on any of that, but we've built this relationship and this conversation. I want to see her grow regardless of what path that is. And going in, doing a pop-up location just month to month in a small cafe at the base of an office building, where we are not asking for that to be open to the public. If people in the office building want to opt into the meal service, she can certainly market to them. They can order their meals in advance. Maybe they're picking up at lunch every day, 5 days a week, but she has that ability to book it in advance. So she knows what ingredients, she knows the meals that she's making. And her goal is to grow that, where she's just got a kitchen to work in, but then she is marketing to families that, want to do keto, they want to do vegetarian, they want to macrobiotics, whatever it is that fits within the realm that they're trying to move their health towards, she's catering to that. So, real estate is a variety of different experiences, and finding your location could be in a ghost kitchen, it could be a cafe at the base of an office building in order to launch your brand.
Any other unique ideas of where people have gone into as far as, real estate to find a kitchen? Because we have people from the Bay Area, we have people from, Jennifer Russell's here, she's moving from DFW, she bought this beautiful retreat center, back in the trees in the Ozarks, and she has to make sure that people find her. But we have so many people that have difficulties finding unique spaces, even if maybe they want a second location, because maybe the first one, different part of town or whatever. Can you speak to finding kitchens uniquely instead of just kind of traditional?
Absolutely. So Certainly office buildings with a cafe at the base, that is not fully functioning. And a lot of times, if you look at an office complex, a campus, each building has its own cafe. And so, we've got a scenario where there's 5 buildings in this campus. They all had their own cafe, but now not all 5 of them are open and operating to the office population that's there. So that's a unique offering. Ghost Kitchen certainly is another one. I lean heavily into relationships with local municipalities, whether people are looking to grow or there's space available in those local municipalities. Those economic development directors or city managers obviously want to foster new business growth and development. So they are often a wealth of information. I find that 95% of them are very well connected. There's 5% or so that may be new to the role, coming in from somewhere else, and so might not have built those relationships yet, but they're also a great place to find connections. Oftentimes alcohol distributors, food distributors, right? They're in restaurants day in and day out, and they're often great sources of information about who might have culled down some of their inventory and orders, and that might present slightly a red flag that they might not be continuing in their business. So I like to, kind of like Game of Thrones, I have little birdies everywhere because you just never know who's going to be able to share with you and help you connect the dots for some insightful information about opportunities to grow.
I have a friend here that could not get a loan for a traditional commercial kitchen. And what he found out was that there were several gas stations here that had commercial kitchens in them that were not being used. And so what he did is he got a loan for a gas station, got it, gutted the place, kept the pumps, because the pumps to this day still make him more money than his restaurant does, and just expanded the kitchen into what used to be the gas station. And it was touted forever a 4-star restaurant and a gas station. So I mean, there's all kind of unique ways to find these. One of the things that you said to me when we were talking, you said there's a consequence of time and moving too slowly. And I said, that's very valuable, because I often talk about having a plan is crap. So any of you guys that are expecting to walk away today with a plan, you need to stop, because you've had lots of plans, I promise you, and they go on a shelf. What you need is strategy with execution, not the plan. So plans don't matter. But what we have learned over the years being an entrepreneur is that people that plan don't get anywhere. People that do and then figure it out as they're going. Now, I know that's causing some of your minds to explode, because that's a whole mindset thing. And back when you were a kid and somebody did something, put that aside. Listen to what I'm saying. So if you could speak to speed and time and money when it comes to growing or growing into a space.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of analysis paralysis, right? You want to have everything kind of figured out, but sometimes you learn best when you just go. So there was a post not too long ago, and I'm not saying that The Rock this is his statement, but I saw it and I was completely inspired, because he said it's either one day or day one. So you just need to own day one and go, and then realize like the pieces will start to fall into place, and God forbid they don't, you get to pivot and then go in another direction. So that's really important, just to go. And then, a part of that too is also building your team, right? If you just wait for one day, time is money. We've got a client right now who we signed a lease in July. We took possession in December because the developer still had some work to do. We just got our permits last week. And so it took us from December to April to get our permits. So that's 4 months of permits. It's going to be another 6 months for construction to build it spaced out above and beyond how the landlord gave it to us. So we have a grease trap, we have HVAC, but we still have a lot of work. And so we had everything that we could have done up until from July of last year to December to get everything in order. So the second we took the space, we had permits in hand ready to go. And so here I had negotiated a really good deal, right? We had 9 months of free rent, but that got triggered because the day we pick up permit to the 9 months is the time that we have to build out. So thankfully, we're not paying what I call dead rent on a space where you're not open and operating, you're still spending money to build it out. That is a really challenging scenario because obviously you're still building out your space. Now you're paying rent on a space that you can't produce from. And so it's very time sensitive to have your ducks in a row, have your team. We get all of our contractors, architects, equipment folks in there, even as if we can, before we even execute the lease. So that way we have the full scope of knowledge to the best of our ability at the time, right? Cost of equipment might change, the cost of wood might change, etc. But we're doing everything we can to have that moving forward as efficiently as possible, as best we could.
Let's kind of talk about a little bit past that. And one of the things that whenever we were talking, and I'm going to ask this of every speaker, because there's something in all of our unique niches that you walk away from a call and you go, for the love, if I have to say this one freaking more time, like I'm going to lose my mind. People call us, for coaching, and the thing that makes me lose my mind is, well, I can probably do this myself. And I always think, what got you here will not get you there. You must be in some type of pain, and you want that pain to continue? Like, really? If it's not us, find somebody else. But why are you doing this to yourself? So what is it that when you start working with a client, or we'll just call it, a culinary business owner, that you think to yourself, if they just knew X, what is that?
I think it's really important to build your tribe, right? I mean, one of the things that I like to come to the table with is you need an attorney to negotiate your lease. I got 3, 5 attorneys, right? Because you just never know who's got bandwidth, who's a good personality fit. I'm going to introduce you to 3 people. And if those 3 people are not good, I'll introduce you to more. But I want you to have your attorney locked and loaded well in advance of having that lease come your way. Because the second that lease comes your way, they're expecting you to turn that around in 2 weeks. The other piece is have your contractor, have your accountants, right? Build your tribe as early as you can. And you might go down the road with someone, you're like, yeah, this is great for this particular one, but I'm not sure they're really the right person to help me move on to number 2 to 5 locations. So it's one of those things you always have to keep interviewing people and finding out who's the right fit, and certainly lean on your tribe for other recommendations. We've got a client now who is absolutely phenomenal. He's got this hole in the wall restaurant on this international corridor, and his dumplings are like 3 hours drive worthy. And I grew up in New Jersey, so we would go to Chinatown all the time, and we'd watch them like hand making all these dumplings. And to watch that process, you're much more endeared. You're going, oh my gosh, this is all handmade. There's not some factory that's kicking this out. They're going to be amazing. And so to this day, he's got, folks in there hand making these dumplings. He is in the basement of an old house, and everyone loves it because it is truly authentic and enjoyable to go and dine there. We've been working with him and said, everybody wants your dumplings. Are you ready to grow? Do you want to do a new location? He said, yes. When we go into a new location, everybody wants this food, but they don't want the authenticity and the rawness of his existing restaurant. They want him to step it up to make the space more aesthetically attractive. And so it's really hard to have that conversation because we get that information from the landlord or developer, but how do we then convey that information to him without making his feelings hurt, right? Like, they want your food, they just want you to step it up in terms of aesthetics. And so how to bridge that gap and tell that story without like insulting someone is a very fine line. But he realizes it, but at the same time, we're kind of playing project manager because this group has required new interior designers, aesthetics, And as much as his first location has been phenomenal and been open and operating for 8 years, he doesn't have an architect. He doesn't have an attorney. He doesn't have a contractor. And so we're able to help him build that tribe. And, he gets to try this contractor, this contractor, this, which one feels like a good fit? You have to make sure to take the time to build your crew. So that way, as you go into future locations, they make that project so much more simple.
It's interesting that you said that too, because I've said to many culinary entrepreneurs, you need 4 things to be really successful in business on a daily basis. You need, and these are the people you need on speed dial. You need your therapist. You need your CPA. You need a really good attorney, and you need a mentor or business coach. Like those people. And I wished that I had hired those people when I was first starting out 21 years ago. But so often in business, we think, I'll do my own books. I'm too small. I want to do this part-time. Or here's my favorite one. I won't ever need an attorney. So yeah. So I see Liz laughing. Because I see so many stories. I'll explain that in a minute. But it is true. So many people think they're too small, I'm not ready yet, or the business is running me, or and it's one of the things this particular client of yours that you said, his space is ugly, he doesn't want to move. We call that being honest enough to have people in life to tell you that your baby's ugly and that you should probably do something about that. So one of the questions I have for you is, I met you through a different organization you're a part of. Could you speak to that, please?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I have found that there has not been a tribe of women who are able to compare notes, talk about best practices. And so a restaurant owner and I said, we need to create this group. It's called Women in Restaurants. Based here in Atlanta, we host probably 6 in-person events and then other webinars just to bring people together to compare notes. What are you experiencing in terms of the cost of chicken and beef this year? We brought in a group, a supplier that said, hey, the cost of beef is going to be up this year because, everyone was so excited about veganism and vegetarianism and quinoa burgers and all of this.
Plant-based, yeah.
What we're realizing is that, they scaled back on beef production. They scaled back on dairy production. We have almond milk and oat milk and coconut milk and all this stuff. And so the costs, because of supply and demand, that has changed. And so to bring everybody together to have this conversation, I think is very important, because as business owners, you're all experiencing this, but if you don't have a forum to discuss it, you might, be a little bit siloed, and it's really important to have that forum to bring everybody together to learn collectively.
Thank you and how do they find out more about Women in Restaurants?
womeninrestaurants.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Next thing I want to ask is there anything that you want to provide or a give back while we're on this Zoom call today?
Yeah, absolutely. My team and I have been working on it, so I don't have it completely buttoned up, but I think within the next 2 weeks, I'd be happy to circulate it. It's just an opening checklist. Again, some of the things we talked about, what do you need before you grow? Or you've decided to enter into a space, what do you need to do now? Is it Department of Ag? Is it Department of Health? Who to contact for basically a checklist to make sure, just like pilots and doctors do as they're going into their, procedures, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And it varies a little bit municipality per municipality, but overall, there is a natural flow of how things come together. So I'd be happy to circulate that to the crew in the next couple of weeks when it's finished up.
Fantastic. And then Heather, I have a question. Are we going to get that to them? Are we going to circulate it, or how do we decide to do? Okay, never mind. It's okay. She can.
No, I just, each individual is going to send it in a direct email. And that way, if they have any questions or want to follow up, they can contact them directly.
Perfect. Edie, if you will go ahead and put, the best way to contact you, in the chat. So that in case they have questions for you, if you will put that there while, Heather, do we have hands raised anywhere? I can't see all the screens. Do we have any hands raised for questions at all?
I'm going through both. We have 2 screens. Give me a second.
Yay, we have 2 screens.
No, none right now. And I did put Edie's contact information into the chat along with the link to Women in Restaurants. Thank you.
Perfect. If you have any questions for Edie, all you have to do is raise your hand because we are going to tell her goodbye. She put her information, I've got several screens. So she put her information if you want to follow up with her, and then we will make sure that she will also follow back up with that offering as well. Thank you for that, because we actually have a lot of people that ask us for a checklist just like that. And that checklist is amazing because now what will happen is they can see what they have prepared and what they don't have prepared. So we love checklists like that. Thank you so much for being here with us today and giving us your time, but not only your time, but also just your willingness to share with this community. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Bye, Edie. And you're welcome to stay. Those of you that have popped in late, hopefully you're in the right place. You're in the most amazing culinary business summit ever, called From Chaos to Control. For those of you that do not know me, I am Chef Deb Cantrell. I go by Chef Deb. I've been a serial entrepreneur in the culinary space for over 21 years. And I'm still alive to tell about it. Most days. I have a culinary medicine company that's 21 years old that we do prepared meals, well, personal chef services, catering, and private flight catering. So I have a large team that runs that company pretty much without me, well over 7 figures. But what you really want to know is, yes, I get to keep a lot of my money. I don't work on Fridays. I absolutely love my team, and I don't work weekends, and I can run my businesses from anywhere in the world I want, and my income is consistent. So those of you guys that thinks that's BS, I don't believe her. I'm here to tell you that it is in fact. We have culinary business owners that come to us and say, I'm never going to have a life. The problem is you built your business first, and that business now owns you, instead of building your life first and a business that supports that life. So you have entered into a very gracious, very amazing community that is willing to share. The speakers here today are giving you their time. Could not be more grateful, lastly, for you showing up. The reason why I'm so grateful is, and I literally want to see a show of hands, how many started something new and thought there is no one that's going to show up? Seriously, show of hands. No one's going to buy this. No one's going to show up. Yeah, this is my first summit. I have always wanted to do this. But what I can tell you is the lessons and the gifts that I have that I have received before this summit ever took place. And here's my Texas accent, y'all. We didn't even have to do this summit. And the gifts that I have met people like Edie. I have met somebody named Rachel. I have met John. I have met the most amazing people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet. But what was so cool about doing this summit is I just wanted to see who showed up. I didn't actively go search for a particular business. I didn't go search for a particular person. I wanted to see who or what divinely showed up and what I would learn. And it has been such an incredible experience. I have found people for you that some of you have been struggling with holes in your business that we couldn't find the people. We have a concept here in this company that we want to work with people that would do what they do, even if they didn't get paid. That is a different level of serving people than always expecting to be paid. I did not say they should not be paid well. That is not what I said. There is a different type of business owner who will serve you without being paid. They will work with you differently. You will make way more money as a result of them. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for being here today. I am grateful to you. So, so grateful to you. Last thing, I said it before, but for those of you that are just now coming in, I do give the speakers after their time to ask questions, but it may not be enough time. If you have a question, please raise your hand. It is in the reaction section. It's a little hand raise. We will acknowledge it. And then whenever we are done, then we'll go back and get those questions. We can't answer all those questions for you today. The speaker's also given you their contact information to follow up with them. On the 17th, we are going to have a deeper version of this workshop where we will get your questions answered. We're also going to send out a 1-question survey that I will be speaking on a particular topic that all of you are struggling with, or most of you are struggling with. We're going to work on that particular topic. We're going to get your questions answered as well. Heather is dropping the link in the chat for that again on the 17th, same time that this one was. No, you do not have to pay us anything for it. No, there is not a payment link. Okay? Okay. Our next speaker, and if you have questions as we go along, please remember to raise your hand. This is your time. Ask the questions. That is what we're here for. The next speaker is Darrow. I see Darrow in the middle of my screen. Hi, Darrow.
Hey, how are you?
Good. This is Darrow Graham, and I met Darrow at a time where I kind of had my head in my hands. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you about who he is and what he does. And before he introduces himself, you're going to think to yourself, this does not apply to me. I'm going to promise you that it does. So, Darrow, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for having me here.
Sure.
My name is Darrow Graham with Transworld Business Advisors. We are the largest business brokerage firm in the country. We have 250 offices worldwide. We've sold over 10,000 businesses in the 40-year period we've been in business. Tons of restaurants, tons of catering businesses, all types of businesses. This is all I do. Yes, I met Deb some time ago, going through some issues in her business, and we're here talking today. And I talked to a lot of business owners, and this is your baby, and we understand it's a very emotional thing when it does come time to sell, and you may not be ready to sell now. And if you're not, the great thing is you have time to plan your exit, because at some point we're all going to exit, and it just depends on how you're going to do it. And there are just some things I know that I've listened to Deb quite a bit, and the things that she preaches is very much what we preach. The same thing about what buyers are looking for is very similar to what your own customers are looking for. So I'm happy to delve into just some of the basics of what we look for when we do a business valuation. We don't charge for that business valuation. We can give you a sense, maybe a benchmark of where you're at right now, because most business owners don't really have a realistic expectation of what the value is. And it's better to know now versus if you come to me, like as most people do, when they're ready to sell right now, and they're really not ready. And so I appreciate you guys having me on today, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, I have several for you. So it's fascinating. And thank you again for being here today. Let me go back. One of the questions that I always ask, so I have an annual workshop called Sharpen. Culinary business owners come here for about 3 days. working, I mean, diligently on their business, setting their goals. And one of the questions I often ask at Sharpen is, what if somebody were to hand you a blank check today, said, you fill it out, I want to buy your business, but you have to tell me all the things that are wrong with it now. That's very different than planning a business and building it and running it day to day. All of a sudden, everything floods into your head of everything that's wrong with your business. So it's interesting when somebody told me that your business will end one day. Whether you sell it, you give it away, you stop it, whatever the thing is. And I remember that made me so mad. And then I realized I'm not going to always own this business. I shouldn't always own this business. And that I might need to do some things day to day to make sure that is sellable or give away or, you know, whatever those things are. So, one of my first questions for you is, what do you wish culinary business owners knew or had in place before they call you to place their business on the market in the first place?
A great question. And really the number one is, you know, what is your why? Why are you really wanting to sell the business? Are you truly motivated to go through the process? Because it can be a very emotional process. And a lot of sellers have fear of, what am I going to do next? And a lot of times they don't sell their business because of that fear factor. But when you're ready to go to the market, what's your why? And if you can plan really 3 years in advance, because there's a lot of things that you can work on that Deb can certainly help you work on, and other mentors and people in your space. You do want to make sure you have a good attorney. You do want to make sure you have a good tax advisor. And we can refer those people to you as well, because we want to build that team as well when we take it to the marketplace. And the number one thing for all businesses is to have a realistic expectation of value. And we're going to provide the business valuation. We're going to go out in the marketplace and look at comps, businesses that are in your space and similar size, similar profit. And your business is going to sell very similar to what other businesses that size in your space sell for. And it's very much like selling a house. If houses sell for $200 a square foot in the neighborhood, your house is going to sell for probably around $200 a square foot. It's just the marketplace. I can't predict the market. You can't. The market will speak, and that's where it's at. And that's really the number one thing that we deal with in, you know, what, and business owners may not know what a business is worth. And certainly that's where we can come in and help them, whether they're ready now or say 3 years from now. Go ahead.
Darrow, I think that we all have an emotional valuation to our business and then an actual valuation of
Right.
business. And those two never, ever align. So, because the worst thing a business owner should do is calculate how much they truly make per hour. Don't do that.
Right.
My question is so many times we work with culinary business owners that say this to me: my business is not sellable. I shouldn't even bother talking to anyone or considering it because of, we're going to fill in the blank now. It could be
Right.
everything from, I'm too small, I do this part-time, I have too much debt in my company, my procedures are not, I don't have my numbers squared away, I don't have X. Remember that, what I said of, here's a blank check, what's all the things wrong with your company? So speak to selling a company, even if they feel like that they can't.
So every business has a buyer, and that's where, depending on where you are, whether it be your size, or you don't have all the standard operation procedures in place, or maybe you don't have the best books and records, and there's a lot of issues, and every company has issues. But you just feel like, who would sell my business? But maybe you need to, for whatever reason. Most people come to us for life events and they need to sell it. And I've sold businesses that are losing money. I've sold businesses that are 30 days from going out of business. I've sold all types of businesses, and you just have to be realistic about what that is, because there are opportunities for the new buyer to come in that sees, wow, if I come in and start a catering side of this business, or I really, really like your location, actually more than the business itself. And I have a really good accountant. I can clean up the books and records. They see opportunity, and that's where it's a good idea to go ahead and talk to someone like myself, and let's just get all out on the table and be very transparent about where you're at. And size does matter. If you feel you're never too small, but if you're a small business that say trades at say $125,000 a year, that's your net profit. You're going to sell for probably about a 1.5 to 2 times that profit. It's not going to sell for a 3 or a 4, but it doesn't mean it's going to sell for nothing. And even if it's breaking even, then you have value in your equipment. You have value in other things, in your brand and your employees. A lot of companies are buying businesses right now because they have such a hard time hiring and training people, and they have staff in place. And they're like, well, that's really what I need more than anything else. But obviously, if it's not making money, it's not going to sell on the higher end of the scale, but it is definitely sellable.
When I learned the concept of buying a business as a growth strategy, it's incredible, because it comes with equipment, it comes with people, it comes with processes, it comes with procedures. You don't have to spend all that money to figure it out. It's already there, even if it's struggling some. That concept of business growth for me, whenever I learned that, I thought, oh, wow, I'm not going to say I'll never start a business again. Have the door closed. So I would say that's what yoga class is for, is just with business ideas. That's not what it's supposed to be for, but that's what happens. So you said, so I want to go back and reiterate something you said. And then my next question is about valuation of a business.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many times that we talk to business owners and they say I have nothing to sell. And my response to that was, well, you've got consistent clients. It doesn't matter if you're a personal chef going into somebody's home, you have consistent clients. You have a consistent brand. You have a list. You may not have assets that can be touched, a stove, a delivery vehicle, whatever, but there's
Mm-hmm.
still things that are sellable there in their business. I have so many people that just think that I'm not big enough, I don't have the stuff, and they just walk away and shut it down. When I know that I helped somebody last year that thought that, and we were able to get them about $50,000 for their business.
Sure.
It's so fascinating because they just don't know it. So tell me what goes in the key factors that you use in valuating a business. What does that look like?
So what we generally will do is meet with the business owner, and just really try to understand why you want to sell the business, your why, and learn as much about the business as we can. And at that point, we'll do the business valuation, and I'll send a list of everything that I need to perform that valuation. And the number one would be 3 years of your past tax returns, your financials, current balance sheet, year-to-date financials, an asset list where we can determine what the market value of your assets are. We want to look at your lease. I'll tell you, in this business, whether it be a restaurant or a construction company, doesn't matter. Landlords will kill deals. And we need to know what that relationship is with your landlord and what type of terms that you have. It may not be assumable. There may not be any escalators in there, and just depending on where the rental market is, that can have an effect on the sellability of the business. So those are really the main things that we look for to do the business valuation.
I saw a lease the other day that a business owner signed. Unfortunately, they signed it and then talked to me about it, that they literally signed a lease that said if the business owner dies, they still owe the money throughout the lease.
Yeah.
Like, did you read this?
Yeah.
Anybody read it? Like,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of leases, and where some leases are tied to the profitability of the business. So as your profit goes up, so does the rent. And there's a lot of things you can negotiate, especially right now, because the commercial leasing market is hurting in a lot of places, and so that gives you opportunities to negotiate. But you just never know who you're dealing with on the landlord side, and that is part of what we help you with, is help the new buyer really negotiate that lease. But we need to understand, how much longer do you have on it? Do you have any renewals on it, availabilities, or those different types of things. So it's important document for us to look at.
Liz, I see you, and we'll grab you here in a minute. I walked away from a partnership. I was building a restaurant with two other partners called Protein Fit Kitchen in this very high area of town. And the moment that I walked away from it was because they wanted me to sign on the dotted line of a lease that said if the entire complex burns, it burns to the ground, like, or gets wiped away in a tornado, they have no responsibility to build it back, but I still owed them the rest of my lease. I'm like, that's not.
Yeah, and you talk about the why. I mean, if you've got a lease, let's say you've got a 5-year lease and your business is losing money, and I just want to walk away and be done. That landlord's not going to walk away and be done with you. So even if you can park that business somewhere else and they'll assign that lease to a new tenant, you don't walk away owing the balance of what you of that lease. I mean, and that's a big number.
Yes, it is.
Generally.
Yes, it is, because every landlord, I mean, I've had great ones, then I've had not great ones, and I have never found a landlord yet that just says, okay, that's fine, we'll find you somebody else. No, it was, my children were gonna pay for that lease, and if they
Yeah,
could get my dog in on the action, she was gonna pay for it too. So, I mean,
absolutely.
it's crazy. Has anybody ever come to you and you said, your business is just not sellable?
Well, yeah, there have been a few instances. I mean, I just love to help people if someone's in trouble. I have sold businesses that are in big trouble. And so I will do everything I can to help, as long as the owner is realistic about what's going to happen to get the business sold. Because if it's losing money and you could have, $150,000 in assets, it may only sell for 50 grand, but you still can remove yourself from that lease that you're personally guaranteed on, and you can walk away because if you stop paying rent, you know what happens. They lock the doors. They're going to keep all your stuff anyway. And business value is not necessarily what the value of the physical assets are. The physical assets are what you need to run the business. And the longer you've had the business, you've kind of got your return on investment on those items. So, and if you have a very heavy asset business, you have a lot of assets, a lot of equipment, it actually makes the business value go down a bit, because what owners are looking for, the bottom line of what they're wanting, is to buy profit. How profitable is your business? And that's truly what drives value. But if you're losing money, even though you may have a lot of assets, you could sell off some of it, but sometimes it's better just to push it off, walk away, and not have a landlord chasing you.
I learned too, and I learned too that there are physical assets you can sell. There are intellectual assets. So you have IP, intellectual property, and then you have physical assets. And I think people don't realize how valuable the intellectual property is. I'm going to call out Julia Dunaway here. She's here today. And hi, Julia. Julia has this amazing brand around no oil vegan. She has a whole life that she has created. She has a whole brand that she has created around this concept. And one of the things, the reason why I call her out is because that's different. People want to understand how to do that. Well, that's all her intellectual property. All of that is her intellectual property. So that's valuable in a business sale too, correct?
It is, and it just depends on what it is. I mean,
Okay.
yes, if you have the name Coke, it's very valuable.
But there's a recipe.
Right, but and there can be something there that drives that. But generally speaking, where the rubber meets the road in business value is profit. What is your net profit? You've heard the term EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization. There's also seller discretionary earnings, and that's where a lot of people run personal expenses through their business. We remove all of those personal expenses and come down to a seller discretionary earnings, including taking out the owner's salary, W-2 salary, not a draw. All of those go to your bottom line, and then it's a multiple on that bottom line. And that drives value probably 90% of what the business is worth. Now, you could have something very unique and some intellectual property that we can take a dive into, or a patent, or or something that makes you extremely unique where another company could buy you and, grow the business exponentially via locations or whatever because of that. And yeah, you could put a price tag on that.
When I sold one of my companies, I sold everything. I sold the assets, I sold the list, I sold the name, I sold the everything. What I did not sell was the intellectual property that created the company in the first place. So I created a certification where they had to recertify the processes to the tune of $10,000 every year. So I took that with me. They couldn't replicate it in any way. And that was an interesting experience. Side note real quick, and this is totally a squirrel moment. One of Julia's sons works for me, and not for me, I get with me, I want to say, on my team. And Julia, he's an amazing young man, and I couldn't imagine business without your son. So thank you for raising such an extraordinary young man. So I wanted you to know that. It's good to hear that as a mom. Okay, so Darrow, one of the things that we often look at too is we want to know the opposite side of it. So what qualities are buyers looking for when they want to own a business? Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us the other side of it.
The qualities they're looking for. Well, and I sound like a broken record, but the number one quality that they're looking for is profit. How much can it make? Will it sustain my lifestyle? Am I buying a job? And how long will I get my return on my investment? So profit is number one, but they're also looking at, owner involvement. How involved are you in the business? Do you have processes in place and people in place that you've cross-trained to where you don't have to be there every single day? And that adds a tremendous amount of value, and you will sell at the top end of that valuation spectrum just based on that, because and the larger the business is, they definitely want management in place. The smaller the business is, the person buying it is going to be the one running the business. It's not as important, but you should always be working on ways to streamline what you do in your business by developing those processes and having people that can do what you do. And that's a very, very hard thing for entrepreneurs to go from working in it to working on it. And not many people pull it off, but the ones that do have a much higher chance of selling their business in the future. Low concentration.
You have heard, hold on, Darrow. If you have heard that before, please raise your hand. Come on. Thank you. I mean,
Yes.
it's team-led company. Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay, but one of those things, and it will help you as a business owner. It will free you. That's the greatest thing about delegating, hiring VAs, doing whatever you've got to do to free up your time. You don't need to take out the trash anymore. There are people that can do that. Trust that they can do that as good as you can, or even better. They can. So that's a big thing, and it'll help you in your life as well. Low concentration of customers, vendors, and key employees. So if you got a vendor that you buy 25% or more of all of your supplies from, you need to have backup. It doesn't mean you're necessarily buying from those other backup vendors, but if that one vendor went away, you need to have a backup system, and you can buy your supplies through those vendors. Same thing with the customer. If you got a customer that's over 25% of your revenue, what happens if that customer goes away? And the buyer sees that, and banks actually will not loan you the money, the SBA, if it's over 25% in most cases.
That's interesting that you said that, because so many times business owners are like, I have these 2 to 3 really big clients, and the first thing out of my mouth is, for now. So they always go away. Always go away.
Right.
So I'm really glad that you said that, because I kind of want to put this into perspective for you. So when Darrow was selling one of my companies, the question that I had to ask on this is a seller disclosure or a sheet or question, or whatever it is.
Seller questionnaire.
There it is. One of the things that, and you guys know what I mean by this, sometimes there's just some questions that whenever you get to them on a piece of paper that's written, all of a sudden that's the only question on this paper. That's it. There's nothing above it. There's nothing below it. It's like a blinking cursor when you're trying to send an email you don't want to send. And this one question was, how much does what percentage of time does owner work in company? I thought, all of a sudden, every meeting I'd ever had, every phone call I'd ever taken, every menu I'd ever done, all of a sudden just kind of came back to me and was like, whoosh. And I thought back, it was like the history of being in business. And I answered that question and I'm like, oh, okay, I can answer this question because I already said I can run my companies from anywhere in the world. My companies don't need me to be in them. It's a choice to work. In Savor, I probably spend about, I don't know, 20% of my time. It just depends upon checking in or where I am or what's going on in business at that time. But I want to kind of ask you now, if you were to look at your calendar over the last week, how much time did you spend working in your business so that if you were to sell it, what would you, how would you answer Darrow? Would you say 100% of the time it can't run without me, even not 1 minute? Or would you say 50% of my time is spent working in this business, or no percent of your time is spent working in this business? I don't work in Savor anymore. I work on Savor. And actually, I do more than on it. Now I work above it. So very, very different. So one of my last questions for you, and then we're going to get to Liz, is there anything that business owners can do on a day-to-day basis to start preparing their business? Because you said really, you know, kind of that 3-year leeway, because I know you get business owners that are like, I am done, like done, like give the damn thing away, don't care, just done, like could care less, bye-bye. Because listen, there was a time in business that I literally had an email written with all of my employees' names, every customer that I currently had, and it literally only said bye, BYE period. That's all it said. My husband walked in about that time. He goes, what are you doing? And I had to stop. That's where I was. That is legit. That is honest. Some of you have been there before. If you haven't, you probably will be there. And if you're not honest with yourself, I promise you it's going to happen. So give us some easy things that they can start doing on a regular basis to get their business ready for transition.
Yeah, so some of it is what we've already talked about, but you know, it's really making those little incremental steps in a lot of these things we've talked about. But another thing, especially in restaurants, it's not as prevalent anymore as it used to be, is cash sales. Record and deposit your cash sales. And if you don't, we can't count that in the valuation. And think about, you may save 30 cents on the dollar by not recording it, but when you do record it, and let's say you sell for a 2X, there's $2 for every $1 that you put in the bank. So it's really important, and that's part of it. Segues into clean books and records. To have clean books and records, it's so easy to outsource all of your accounting with QuickBooks and so on. It's not expensive anymore. That's one of that's like the number two. Number one is profit. Number two is clean books and records. And that will make a business unsellable, or you'll have to sell it for a tremendous discount because there's so much cleanup the buyer has to do, and they can't follow, you know, where your expenses are, where your revenue is. Is it making money? And if you can't answer those questions, then you got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes. Why would I buy this business? Why would I pay them $150,000, $200,000 for a business when they can't really prove that they're making the money they say they're making? Minimize your add back. So I know we're trying to minimize our tax burden. You and your accountant, everybody does it, but you want to be careful about what's, you know, a gray area versus what's typical. All the EBITDA stuff, your earning, your depreciation, your interest, amortization, that's all good. But when you start putting in food purchases into your cost of goods, and that's something that your family uses on the side and so on and so forth, you can't really prove that. So just be careful of those types of things. Even if it's a cell phone, you know, we really don't use landlines as much as we used to. Your cell phone may be used in the business, but if you have a family plan, you can take your family expense off. So just be mindful of just getting the books and records as clean as you can. And standard operating procedures are not hard to do anymore. They actually have programs now where you can create a video and walk around and create all your standard operating procedures. And the new generation doesn't want to read your standard operating procedures book. They want to watch a video, and they have programs out there right now that where you can do it. So it's those little things like that make a difference when you're starting to prepare the business for sale, and it's just actually going to make your life a lot simpler as well.
Darrow, 2 questions, and then we'll get to Liz. First question is any idea of those programs? Because I need to write that down.
Mm-hmm.
Any?
Yeah, it's funny. I just learned about it a couple days ago. I can send you the information on it, but it's really neat. I'm actually going to use it myself, and I'm going to suggest it with all of my sellers and even the buyers. As they come in and they're going through the transition, use this program and you can develop it, because we all want to watch videos. We don't want to go through and look through some manual somewhere that's probably collecting dust somewhere in your office.
So where you'll get that information, and then
Mhm.
and then we'll make sure that you guys have access to it, but also Darrow, you'll have access to, so that you can send it out to them as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, and certainly I'll leave my contact information. You guys can call me. Anybody can call me anytime, ask me any questions. I'm happy to give, a back of the envelope valuation or a full blown valuation. We don't charge for that. And maybe between you and I and Deb, we can help keep you on the right track. And then when you're ready to exit, then it'll be a great, clean transaction for you.
Darrow's done a lot of the back of the napkin valuations. It's interesting, and for those of you guys that might have missed it, it was something valuable that I wanted to ask him that he actually alluded to. Is so many times when we go in business, when we learn the concept of running quote unquote everything through our business, that is great for taxes. I understand that. It can also be a red flag for taxes, because you can't always not make any money in your business, because the IRS will start to go, well, excuse me. But it will start to hurt you especially when you get into that process of looking at starting to sell a business. You want as clean as books. You want to know, a buyer will want to know what is legitimately being run through the company. And that's one of the things that Darrow asked me, is he said, okay, you've got some travel things that you've run through. What was this? Is it the same thing? And this was a valuable question. He said, would a buyer have this same travel expense? Well, to be honest, one of them was, because I went to a conference for Culinary, and there was airfare and there's hotel and all that stuff. But no, one of them actually was a trip to Italy. Several of the people in our community went to Italy. While that's a legitimate write-off and business expense for my company, I learned so much from there. I was there with some of the people that I just absolutely love. Another business owner who was going to buy this business would not take that same deduction. So that's very valuable. And I know it's a fine line. Believe me, I know it's a fine line. Liz, your question.
Hi, Darrow.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
In the situation where you're going to sell a business and the business also owns the property that the business is operated out of, how do you handle that? Do you partner with a local realtor, or does your company handle the sale of the business as well as the sale of the property?
We can actually do both. Some brokers have license, and in Texas, all you really need is an attorney that can write up the contracts, and then our closing agent can close the real estate transaction and the business transaction simultaneously.
Okay, thanks.
But we do on that though, just make sure it's really important that if you can separate the real estate from the business itself, and that you charge yourself normal market rent, because a lot of businesses that own the real estate don't charge themselves rent, and that's a negative add back. We have to negatively put market rent back in if you're not going to sell the real estate. We can kind of play with that a little bit if you are. It's a little longer conversation, but yes, we can definitely sell both.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Laura, your question?
Yeah, hi. You were talking about profit first, and obviously that makes a lot of sense, but is there a guideline of what that profit should be, or what is most enticing to a client? Obviously 100% profit would be the best scenario in the world, but
Sure.
not realistic. But, maybe is there a minimum that allows a business to have value, or is there sort of a guideline that it should be 30% or 60% or 10% or?
Well, and one of the things you want to be able to benchmark against your own industry. So, and I don't know what it is for the food business, but end of the day, most businesses, if they can net, say 10, 15% or better, that certainly looks good. You've got to also keep in mind that someone buying the business has to service the debt. So if they get a loan, or if you offer seller finance, which is something that I highly recommend, they're servicing that debt. And is there enough money left over for them to make a living? Because a lot of these people, what they're quote doing is buying a job. They were in corporate America. They made, say, $80,000 a year. They want to buy a business and make at least that or a little bit more. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
To answer that question too, with the profit, I always look for with our business owners, especially when they have clean profit and losses, I always want them to realize at least 20% profit after all the operating costs. That's minimum. My goal is to always get them to 30. So
Right.
most restaurants, you're at about 2 to 5% profit, but a lot of them are artisan businesses. Even if you're in a commercial space, you can actually realize closer to about somewhere between 20 and 30%. Just depends on a lot of factors. So
Right.
awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Darrow, if you would please put your contact information in the chat. And then
I will do that.
also, while we're doing that, you talked about having an offering to these people as a result of them showing up today. And is there anything that you offer or want to give them?
I certainly would offer a free business valuation, and we can get as in depth as you want. It's generally a 32-page report that we do at no charge to any of Deb's clients, anybody on this webinar, and certainly happy to talk more in detail about some of the things that we talked about today. And I will get that software information for the SOP and send that to you, Deb, so you can share that with everybody.
I want to be really, really clear. Do not hesitate to reach out to this man. He is not going to sell you. He is not going to push you. He is going to do none of that. He is going to answer your questions, because I know that whenever you heard free evaluation or free evaluation conversation, all of a sudden I saw some of your faces. It's not the case. Reach out to him. Okay.
I
All right.
put Darrow's information in the
Thank you.
chat and his free business evaluation offering, but also each of the speakers here will receive your email so that they can actually send these directly to you. If you don't get it, reach out to them.
All right. Thank you so much, Heather.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
So much.
Bye, Darrow.
Okay. Did you guys learn some things? Yeah.
Liz, did you have a question? Because your hand is still up, or did you get your question answered? Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, ah.
She's probably like me, because Liz and I are both IT challenged, and she probably couldn't figure out how to lower it. So anyway,
I don't know. I've seen Liz figure out some pretty difficult things.
Liz has. Okay. We are going to move on to our next speaker, which is Halima. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, did.
Okay, good. Who you're about to meet, I actually have known her for years, just kind of digitally. We've talked back and forth. We've, shared some conversations, but she is a part of a group that I'm going to let her introduce you to. It is, what I have to say about this group is it's about damn time. And who they are and what they are doing in the UK, whenever she talks about it, please look it up. It has become explosive in some of the growth with the dignitaries that she has, the people that are on board. They're starting to be ambassadors here in the States. But the reason why I want you to listen to her is she's going to introduce you to the Burnt Chef Project, but what I want you to hear is they have valuable resources for your employees to take advantage of. So many times you wonder, what can we do for our employees? One, just for the betterment of their mental health, job environment, all of those things. But also, this is a way, these are going to be tools, in my words, that will allow employees to stick around. Like, I'm going to let her speak to all of these things now. So, Halima, if you will introduce yourself and then also the Burnt Chef Project. Go for
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I come from a chefing and hospitality background, and that's kind of how I got connected with Deb, 2016, I think it was, Deb. So I've been a private chef for 16, and hospitality, is obviously, we love it. We're in it for a reason. The change for me came over the pandemic, where I've turned my career into a well-being career, focusing on food as medicine, detox and toxicology. And I am working in a private hospital, helping with patient recovery and qualifying in functional nutrition this year. As I'm not sure about the States, but our medical systems are crashing here. So I've really transitioned my career and using my skills. But as we all know, hospitality translates. And speaking of the pandemic, this is sort of when I came across the Burnt Chef Project. It originally launched in May 2019, and it was set up with the sole intention of eradicating mental health stigma within hospitality, which is something we've never had before. Those long antisocial hours, the tough environment conditions, pressure to perform. So fighting those elements on an ongoing basis. I initially joined the coffee and chats that our founder, Chris, created for us in COVID, because, as you know, our industry was one of the hardest hit. And that's really where it started for me, my journey into becoming an ambassador. And we would have coffee and chats on a Friday, just, reaching out to people. And there's a lot of loneliness, a lot of depression, a lot of suicide, and that kind of thing happening. And over the last 4 years, I became an ambassador, and then I became a chief ambassador. And what that means is I'm in charge of a region. I have a peer support and mentor ambassadors in 6 cities right now. So it's a pretty amazing environment. We create community. So we do college talks, we go out, we educate, we have a lot of free resource, which I'll be happy to share the website and links that you can download at a later stage. But just on a note of a recent survey conducted with 1,273 hospitality professionals showed us that 8 out of 10 mental health, people suffered from mental health. So that's quite a large number. And then you think about 46% of those people would not feel comfortable talking about their mental health conditions and what they were going through to their colleagues or their, employers. So that's a big thing. And we really, we've grown a lot. We really have moved milestones in the last 4 years. So happy to share, a lot more of that with you.
That's so needed. And, so many, I think that, the picture that a lot of people probably popped in their brain is, Anthony Bourdain and his story and, his path. So we're going to get into a little bit more detail about some of those resources here in just a little bit. But one of the questions is, what changes have you seen in the culinary industry and employees since the UK took the stance on mental health in the hospitality industry? So basically, what good has it done? What changes are you seeing as a result of implementing these processes and programs?
It's been absolutely massive, Deb. The growth is phenomenal. I mean, we have a global reach now. So we have ambassadors on every single continent. Word of mouth is one of our strongest, points of people talking about it, creating that buzz. We obviously have merch. So people think about, like you have your t-shirts, this kind of thing is super, super, it's so important for us. And also people are reaching out to us going, oh, what's going on, with the Burnt Chef Project? We're getting more people saying, can you come in and bring ambassadors in to talk to us about, what you're doing and, what's happening within the project? What is it about? How can we be a part of it? So I would say since the pandemic, we've noticed that I think there were about 100,000 vacancies within hospitality. It's massive. It's
Yes.
huge. And I think globally we're suffering with that. And then we've seen that 30% of the employees leave within 90 days of starting a new job. And things can get worse before they get better, right? So 57% of Gen Z workers plan to quit their current jobs at the moment. So that's what we're seeing. We are then going in, we do, as ambassadors, we go into colleges, we train, we educate, we bringing a lot of awareness. And we've really grown as an organization, and we're more of a tool driving change throughout the industry. That's the way we sort of see it now. And obviously we have, with the various resources, there's so many to mention, but if I share the links with you, we've got things like First Aid Suicide to help. We have fundraising platforms to then help us keep. We have a text and support phone lines, and we've got these on the different continents as well. So you can call or text anonymously. These are one of the things that, we're really seeing helps a lot of people. And we're between that, so selling merch and that kind of thing, fundraising helps us to create these lovely apps that can help people. We have e-learning. We've got a Thrive app, which is basically a CBT app on your phone that companies pay X amount for, and your employees can do self-check-ins. We have a diploma in leadership in mental health for to actually help within the workplace. So there's a lot of great things that we're doing to be able to help people in business put these things in place. I think mental health training is also becoming part of an induction. You know how we have like first aid, in every kitchen. So we're seeing a lot of large corporations bringing in mental health training as part of their induction systems and their training tools. We're also having day-to-day conversations, and it's more widely accepted now to talk about mental health in the workplace, that people are struggling and what that means and how we work with them. So that's what we've seen over 4 years, just in 4 years. So it's very exciting to see what, is going to happen over the next, 10 years even.
I think that this has been a piece that's been missing. First of all, way too far overdue. But there's been for a very long time in our world a sense of pats on the back for the struggle. There's
Absolutely.
been a sense of, because you can go on so many Facebook groups where chefs and culinary business owners hang out, and there's a certain sense of kinship in the long hours or the struggle or the addictions or the burnout or the failed relationships, all of those things. And so the Burt Chef Project was really coming from a place that the history had been there for centuries, like since the beginning. It's just something, it's almost like a badge that people wear.
Yeah, work harder, the hours.
And it's, it's one of the things that we talk about all the time is, no, the business doesn't have to run you. Your life is not this business. So I need to kind of flip a switch in some of the business owners' brains here today. And there's two things in their brains. The first thing is, how do I implement these things around mental health awareness? How do I implement it? And then the second thing they're asking, and they're not going to say it out loud, is, so what's in it for me as a business owner? Can you answer those two questions?
Absolutely. So we're seeing that businesses that begin to prioritize people first ahead of profit. And I know, everyone thinks of profit first, right? But if we value our teams, that's the key. So the key is staff retention, for one, developing roles to allow better balance for your teams, giving them enough time off and respecting that time off and saying, we can manage the business while you're not there. I think that's really important. I think team engagement and them seeing the opportunity to make things better within the environment will keep them staying there, thinking, right, our employers and our management care about us, so we actually do want to go to work, and, cultivating that, within. So we're seeing reduced absenteeism, where employees feel supported and they're equipped with mental health support, on the job. So you have a mentor, you have all the training you need, you have the support networks that we also, share with businesses. And then you find increased productivity. So that reduces costs on your sick days and your hospital bills. That's, Also, your rota patterns, managing your rotas better. That's something else we can share with you as well. That's something that the Burn Chef project's aligned with recently. Managing your rotas better to be able to give people time off and see where, things are going within the business. Prioritizing time away from the business is, being able to recharge your batteries for better performance. There's a lot of massive operations and some of our patrons as well that are with us. They really incorporating that. That's becoming something very important here in the UK. Improving our employer engagement and their productivity. So when they feel valued, they feel supported, they're more likely to be engaged, and their work and their performance is at peak, right? So you've got their attention, they feel valued. So looking after people, and then the business gets taken care of. The other part is enhancing the business retention and recruitment. So businesses that are prioritizing mental health within, their employee systems are more attractive to employees, because they're like, okay, if we go and work for you, you understand well-being. So we do want to work for you because you're going to take care of us. And then reducing the health costs, like I mentioned earlier, but addressing those mental health concerns proactively, providing mental health resources that employees can go to, helplines, signposting, we have all of that. Addressing issues before they escalate. So potentially reducing, the need for costly medical interventions down the line, knowing that your management system has something amazing in place, that really also helps. It then enhances your reputation and your brand image, being associated with, mental health associations. This demonstrates the commitment to, of the well-being to your employees, including your mental health, potentially first aiders getting involved, training people, signposting them, and having a positive, reputation amongst employees. People talk, right? So your brand gets spoken about. Oh, they do take care of people. So that's a big thing we've seen with a lot of companies here too. This also enhances your brand loyalty. It attracts customers to you, and people will value, your social responsibility to businesses, and it will strengthen relationships with stakeholders in the marketplace. So those are just a couple of things that we're seeing, but also investing in your mental health protocols and education can contribute to a healthier and more engaged workforce. So that leads to increasing business success and a stronger, bottom line at the end of it. So staff retention is the biggest thing we're facing, isn't it? So prioritize your team, just taking care of these simple things.
So because this is honestly just and I'm going to be completely honest, a foreign concept to us because how we were brought up or what we were taught.
Yeah.
I know so many want to figure out how to get started. Like, give us, and I have like 3 questions based upon the same thing that you said.
Okay.
First, how do they get started integrating not only what Burnt Chef has as far as they've got downloadables, they've got so much education, but that can be overwhelming when we talk about making sure that part of your culture and core values is how you will take care of your employees. So kind of 2 questions is how to incorporate it into culture and core values. So for hiring and also maintaining, but how to get started. What can they do?
This starts at the top, leadership. Absolutely. It's all down to the management team. So introducing, your training right at the beginning. And also when you recruiting, we're not just recruiting for skill. We're recruiting people to feel, there's an inclusivity into that, understanding that, we understand first aid is your module. We're going to introduce well-being to that. Being open to being important conversations being started around with your staff and your day-to-day life, the struggles, briefings during the day, but also looking at staff feedback. What are they struggling with? What are the needs in the business? Look within instead of looking out. So we're saying, okay, we need to change our rotas. People aren't getting enough time off. Getting that feedback will really help you internally, and then being able to structure that. So we find that, asking certain questions, building a framework around that to then incorporate it. So your core values as a business, your management taking part in this is really going to help create and change, the culture within your business. The leadership needs to be committed, in order to, they need to be on board with it, and perhaps, very much involved with whatever training you are doing with your employees. Be involved in that, be engaged in that, so they can see you really a part of it. And I think demonstrating your commitment to your employees, promoting mental health initiatives, allocating resources, participating in the training yourselves, and raising awareness and signposting. I think these are a great way to start. And especially when you're interviewing people, if they understand that well-being is the first part, it's the point of call, that this is important. Because if we think about it, Deb, we have so many, when you have managers around, people are doing their jobs, right? When managers step away, what do we see? Sometimes they don't care. But imagine if you had employees that actually enjoy coming to work because they enjoy the culture at work, and they are going to do the business for you. You don't have to be there and manage. And, some people have to micromanage. So these are things we're seeing, that if management gets it right, it comes down. And we have a lot of training and help and support for that.
This is kind of what Darrow was talking about too, either being a, kind of a team-led company, is that when you start at the top with that leadership, it does trickle down. There's even copy now that we've started putting in a lot of our hiring postings when we're looking for chefs and other business owners about how they will be taken care of, that they will have a life, that they will not be, treated like the traditional employee. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to get started with you here in just a little bit, but I have a kind of important question that really and truly that I want to know, and it's based upon a scenario that happened at Savor the other day. I happened to pop in to Savor, and there was a young man that we hired for a delivery driver, and he had let us know that he was medically discharged from the military and why. And it was basically due to a suicide attempt from bullying. Okay, no problem. We sat him down and we said, safe environment, we're a family here, we're here to take care of you. One that will not happen here. Just please be honest with us about what you need. Sure. And we're going to start here and we're going to train you. Okay, everything was fine. About 3 days into it, I saw his face when he came around the corner, and I said, come have a seat. And the first words out of his mouth was, I can't do this. I said, could you tell me what this is? He said, any of it. I said, you got to tell me more. I had to make sure that to help him get someplace where they could take care of him based upon that follow-up conversation. And then I called his grandfather, and so on and so forth. What I was missing in that moment, this was probably about 2 months ago. What I was missing in that moment is a immediate resource.
Yeah.
Tell me more about an immediate resource if a situation like that happens.
So being an ambassador, especially being a chief ambassador, we have to do a mental health first aid course. That's number one. We've also introduced a suicide first aid course to be able to deal with things. We have a lot of resource, and also on our library, we have courses on understanding all of that. So when you do your mental health first aid, it really helps you signpost people. It helps you know how to speak to them, how to deal with them in that moment, being patient, being calm, and also letting them know that they're safe. That's a very big thing. It's them understanding, I feel safe, because people are vulnerable, right? So they need to know that they feel safe and they're going to be looked after. That training, and it's also life experience, Deb. I think it's a little bit of both, because every situation is different. I mean, I helped rescue 5 people from suicide last year, and we didn't have the course, and the project then created that for us because our crisis teams are struggling. So there are resources for that. There is a lot of support to be able to help you in business, to help your employees understand or signpost them, because we're not psychologists. We don't claim to be, but we're just there to help you go, right? What's going on? Is it which direction do I need to send you to, in order to get you support? So we can give you sort of like, I want to say a strategy almost on how to go about that. We definitely have a lot of those tools.
Is there also, I'm going to go into a vulnerable story, and then I'm also going to ask the question of, are there resources also for business owners from their own emotional standpoint? Here's why. About 5 years ago, I had a dishwasher that came in about 30 minutes late, slow. I don't know. He was really slow that day. Went back to the dish pit and said, you have got to speed up. Like, whatever's going on with you today, we will talk about it later. But like, we got stuff we got to get out.
Yeah.
That was my first mistake. I
Yeah.
know that. First mistake. Second mistake was not training my staff, because I walked out. I said, so where is he? Called him by name. They're like, oh, he's been in the bathroom for about 30 minutes. I'm like, did nobody see a problem with that? Like, you had your heads down.
Yeah.
Did nobody see a problem with that? Could not get in the door. I personally ended up literally kicking in the door, and he was ODing on my bathroom floor.
Wow.
I started CPR, called the ambulance, the whole bit. He ended up dying. But my one thought, and I'm going to admit this, my one thought, because of where I was at that time and in business, I was standing over this human being, straddling him, as you can imagine, the body fluids. And I said, shit, our food's going to be late.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
I needed, as a business owner, help at that point.
Absolutely.
We talk about the staff. What is there for business owners? Anything?
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
actually have a lot of courses. I can definitely share those with you as well. And I believe my ops manager, he's just logged off, but he's signed. He's posted some stuff.
Good.
We definitely will send you as much as you need, whatever resource. But we do have trainers on board that actually go into companies and train from the top down. So, and then we understand where are your struggles? What are you struggling with? And how can we put those plugins and help you fix that? But I would say mental health first aid has got to be the most valuable tool, the most valuable 2 days I've spent training and going out into the workplace every single day. It's different. You'll be, as we know, the culinary industry. I mean, suicide, I don't know about the States, but in the UK, suicide is absolutely massive.
Yes.
We're seeing so many suicides, and also the cost of living, etc. So
Yes.
we are very much in touch with what's going on. And just a little bit of a share here is, like with what's happened with the World Kitchen, giving food out on the borders of Gaza, that kind of thing. We have actually created a fundraiser. So we are very in touch with what's going on. And we are offering mental health support to those families and people that need it. That's kind of where we are. We're very in touch with what's going on. So if you need support in your business, we have trainers and people available to sit and talk with you and go, right, Deb, what is it that you need? Strategize with you and help you get the right resource to help your business thrive and help your employees. We've never had it. So this is, I can't tell you how honored I feel to be a part of this and be able to speak to you about it, because it's life-changing.
It is life-changing, and it is past, way past time for owners and for employees.
Absolutely.
So if you will make sure in the chat, I know Heather's been dropping some links. She has a Burnt Chef project and then support service. If you will put the best way to contact you in case they want to be an ambassador, which I'm talking to the Burnt Chef project about now for myself. If they want to get started, they need these resources and these tools. If you will put that in there, and then also, if you have an offering today, please let us know about that.
Yes, I've actually designed something very special for all of you. It's an ebook, and it has mental health affirmations. So it's a page of affirmations that you can print out and stick somewhere. It's beautifully designed, and it's also a wellness check-in with menu plans and things about where you are. It's a beautiful little resource to just have with you all the time. And the Burnt Chef project has also given you a well-being in the workplace poster that you can download. So there's some really cool resource to give to you.
We will make sure that you have their contact information so that you
Thank
can
you.
give this to them. I am reading and I am seeing some of the chat. You guys, Brenda, I see your hand. You guys have to understand with all the different screens and paperwork and things that I am seeing a lot of things in your chat. Julia, you said your first career, 35 years as a clinical social worker, mental health therapist. Now as a coach, I'm very aware of these concerns. That's amazing. You came before us at a time when we weren't ready for you, and now we definitely are. I see, I wish the burnt chef from Jonathan. Burnt chef project was a thing when I was executive chefing back in the days. Restaurant owners didn't care if you are burnt. Just
Yeah.
hit, just hit some tears earlier. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. Prioritize your team as your investment in people. Absolutely. We are, one of our most valuable culture statements here is, and our core value is people over profit every single time. I love that you guys are sharing these things. Brenda, did you have a question? I saw your hand.
Yeah, I don't have a question per se. I just wish she was Halina was here giving us this information way earlier than this. You know, for 18 years being a chef and going through all this stuff. Right now, I don't have a team, which hopefully I'll get that team soon. But really, I want to thank her for all this information, and this was like so helpful and give me more ideas in what I want to do and how I want to bring this stuff to me.
You're so welcome. And I honestly, I'm happy to, I think Heather has my social connections. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn and however I can help. And, you know, I do this for free. It's not a paid job. I do this, like Deb mentioned earlier, this is my way of giving back to an industry that has given us so much and that we want to see grow because we know the problems we're facing globally. So I give back my time in that way. I know it sounds crazy, but this is my way of giving back, you know, in a charity that I think is so important for so many people that are struggling out there today.
And Halima, when you send out that ebook and the things that you're sending, because I have that list I'll be sending to all y'all, make sure that you include all of the different ways they can connect with you on social, just so we're hitting them from all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They'll be amazing.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. It's been an honor to be with you today.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Isn't that amazing? Like, it's when I learned about the burnt chef, and it's like anything. You see them pop into LinkedIn, you see them pop into, you know, Facebook feeds, or maybe you have it, but I saw, you know, glimpses of them and never really thought twice. And then I started really researching the burnt chef, and I thought, this is huge. This has got to be in the States. A few of their ambassadors here in the States have reached out to me. One was here earlier. I think he had to pop out to take a call, but I mean, she was telling me, like I said, some of the dignitaries and royalty that are a part of this now, and it's staggering, and it is absolutely amazing, and it is way, way past time. You're going to see more about the burnt chef here in the States very, very soon. And it is also late for Halima, so I'm so grateful that she came on this call today. So, okay. The next person that we have up is Kim Beechner. I think I see you in the middle of the screen. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And I apologize, we're running a little bit late. There's been lots of.
No, it's been great conversation. I've
Yes,
enjoyed
it has
it.
been. It really has been. I am going to let you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then from there, I have some questions for you. So go for it.
Awesome. Well, my name is Kim Beechner. I am the founder and CEO of Embark Marketing. We are a digital marketing agency and public relation agency based here in Texas, out of San Antonio. And our focus is primarily on the food and beverage industry. I am an ex-service industry worker. I spent a lot of my experience working operations and managing restaurants and bars. And kind of from that experience, I developed a marketing company that was built by service industry for service industry. So that's kind of who we are.
You think she understands us? Because, wow. And she still wants to work with us. So, because she is one of us.
Yeah, it's I love my service industry people.
It's fascinating because you market, hospitality companies, and then later we'll have somebody for HR for the culinary industry. And it's so fascinating when I found many of you, they're like, we just love working with the culinary industry. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that I would ever hear anybody say that. So let's get started with a couple of questions for you. My first question
Sure.
is, so many times with our culinary business owners that we work with, they say this, I don't have time for marketing. I can just quote, do it myself, but I really, really want consistent income. So how does marketing assist with creating consistent income for culinary business?
I think consistent brand awareness leads to consistent income, quite frankly. I feel like when you're engaging in marketing and exposing people to your brand, you're more likely to see an increase in revenue. So much of the service industry is word of mouth, right? We have to put out a good product, a good service, provide that 5-star experience. And when we do that, then we're able to see a return on investment, because a positive review, a positive affirmation of what you're doing is so valuable. But the realistic thing today is that we're living in a digital world, and there's what I call the unknown customer, the people who don't know what they're looking for and they're just searching. So having both a digital presence and an on-premise presence with your community can help get your brand out there and attract that consistent income that you're looking for. That's not just coming from word of mouth.
Can you explain, and I know this is going to be an odd question because I spend a lot of my time, and some of our coaches that also work in this company and serve our members, we all spend quite a bit of time around this concept of brand. It's not your website, that's part of your brand. You have a logo. People are like, I have a brand, I have a logo. Well, first of all, your baby's ugly. So let's start there. And then you may have a logo, but it may not represent your brand well. It may not attract your target market. It may not be relevant anymore. It may be old. And then they think, well, I'll just use the different font and that's fine. And I'll use these different colors and then my logo here. And I really need you to almost be very granular about brand. What is it and why is it important?
So deeper than just those physical assets, colors, look, feel. I'm thinking tone of voice, vibe. Those are things that go deeper than just the logo, the colors, and the fonts. And I feel like when I meet with so many entrepreneurs in the food and beverage industry, that is the number one thing that they are missing. They don't know what their tone of voice is. They don't know what their vibe is. And from that, then you can create the logo, the colors, the fonts. And then together that creates what we call a branding kit that can then communicate effectively across all marketing platforms what and who you are. And that step seems to get skipped all the time. They immediately buy a domain and put up a website, and I'm like, wait, we've skipped a whole journey of just questioning. And I encourage you to do that. Question yourself. What is my goal? Who is my target audience? Am I a luxury brand? Am I a mom and pop? What does that mean? And who am I trying to attract? And then from there, you can take the next steps of developing those assets.
It's interesting that you said that, because so many times people, here's I'm a prime example. I am not picking on anyone when I say this. This is an example for the group. I spoke to somebody it was about 2 weeks ago. I was doing a strategy call, and she said, I can't find clients. Just can't find them. Like, don't know. I've been in business for many years and I just don't understand. And I said, okay, well, let's take a look at some things. One, I said, okay, I don't see you on social. She goes, I hate social. I said, okay. And I said, so that's number one. I said, let's talk about your list. And she said, I never did one of those. I said, okay. I said, well, let's take a look at your website. The name of her business, one, would never attract a high-end client. It just wouldn't. The name, period, like, would never happen. And then on top of that, she said, well, I built a website. I said, yes, you built a website. That's the problem. So not only are you not on social, not only do you not have a list, not only did you not build a brand, and you built your own website. What you did is you built an island and put yourself on it. That's what you did. So no, you're not ever going to have clients this way. And she goes, well, I used to have word of mouth. Like, you're right. There's only so many mouths. Okay.
Yeah.
There's only so many mouths. So speak a little bit more about how it all, because I think that the piece that we miss until we learn it, how do they all fit together like puzzles? Because in the mind of a consumer, a confused mind's going to say no. Here's my prime example. Everybody have a mental picture of a Tiffany's jewelry box in your head? Everybody, you got that? Seriously? Is it in your head? They're going to decide tomorrow that their new color's pink. Doesn't that kind of piss you off just a little? Piss you off a little. No, you can't do that. No. Okay. Well, your brand is the same. You have a high-end buyer that comes, and all of a sudden you're like, why would you name your business this?
Yeah.
Those colors. There's typos on your website. You did your website. Speak more. I want you to go into this buyer perception of brand.
So first, it depends on where you are in your journey of your business. I think if you're first starting out, you need to start looking at your competition, looking at other brands that are similar to where you would want to be positioned so that you have an understanding of where you stand in the market. So let's say you are going after that luxury catering market or whatever that may be. Look at some of the other luxury catering same price range in your market to get an idea of what they're doing. It's not to copy, it's to, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel or copy. We're just trying to elevate ourselves in the market. I think that's important. When it comes to names, this is something that I find, to me, it seems very, not a lot of restaurants think of it, or food and beverage companies, but Google what name you're thinking of. That impacts your rankings. So like, for instance, I had a client that wanted to call their company a certain name, and when I searched it on Google, it turns out there were other companies that were named that same thing in a different industry, not in food and bev. And I was like, this could get confusing when people start Googling and trying to find. It could impact your rankings, the way that people search, the way that you're found, in which case, how dedicated are you to that name? Perhaps we need to reconsider a different name. And then once you kind of figure out your name and you figure out where you want to position yourself in the market, I think you can get more granular and think about, you know, is this name going to attract the type of clientele that I'm looking for? Are my colors the right colors? Do they invoke the right vibe and feel that I'm going for?
So, one of the things that we hear is, so many business owners want to get started with marketing, but simply don't know where to start. Like, I have business owners that are like, I'm going to go hire a firm. And then they get the contract and they're like, I'm like, okay, well, you ran before you walked. And so that's not necessarily necessary. If you've got the money for it, great. But we need to, could you give some type of ideas of where people can start with their marketing? And I know you get asked this question all the time. What kind of things can they do for free? No, I'm not
Yeah.
asking you about necessarily free. Marketing is an investment. So therefore, when you invest in your business, you get the return. So where can they start? That's going to be my first question. And then we're going to talk about kind of seasoned people in marketing of how they can continue that. So start with starting in marketing.
If you're just starting out, I think that brand development piece is really, really important. Getting the logo, getting the assets together, deciding what your logo is going to be, having it in the right resolution, your fonts, your colors. And then the free things that you can do is create a website and create your social media handles, and create a Google for Business. All three of these things start to establish your presence online so that when the unknown customer starts to search, you propagate on the internet and they can find you. One of my recommendations there is, let's say you have your company name, it's, you know, Lotus Flowers Catering. Then you would want to pick your domain to be lotusflowerscatering.com, and you would try to you would want to claim your social media profiles to be similar to that domain. So hopefully Instagram.com/lotusflowercatering is also available. When you're first starting out your business, I think creating consistency across the brands from the domains to the social media platforms, not only one helps your search engine ranking, but also helps for consumers to find you and make sure that everything is easy to tag, easy to engage with, and really builds a strong brand foundation, which is what you're going to need before you get big. You know, you don't want to have to go back and fix those mistakes. It's better to just start out correctly.
Well, I'm going to ask you kind of the next of that, but I'm really glad that you said that, because so many times the majority of people on this call already have somebody else doing their marketing, or they're about to have somebody else doing their marketing. And so many times I think that I actually have people that get really upset with me, because here's my lipstick and pig scenario is, you're going to pay a lot of money and invest in marketing, but if you haven't done the work ahead of time to make sure your brand is where it needs to be, it is convertible, and you've done all these foundation pieces, now you're going to spend all this money on marketing and it is not going to convert like you want it to. So this is where we talk about, you can't put lipstick on a pig. Like, you have to do all of the work that's involved. I want to take it a step further. There's many here that have the brand. They've built the website. They've hired the website to be built. They've got the copy. They've got the social. They've got all of that done. How do they now get started next in hiring somebody to promote their business so that they don't get scared with we'll call it a $10,000 a month proposal. So what's the next step for them? And we'll just call it traditional digital marketing. Talk to me about that.
So I think the next step, once you have all of those ducks in a row and you've gone to the extent that you can go on your own and you're looking for something more, I think the first step is finding somebody that's unique to our industry. Having worked in operations myself prior to opening this agency, what I found is a lot of the marketing companies that we worked with didn't quite understand the industry specifically, our consumers, and sometimes even our operational procedures. They would ask things that I was like, operationally, that's just not feasible. Okay. Like, I'm doing a catering from this time to this time. Like, I need to run this many staff. I can't have people over here doing an off-premise marketing thing when I need staff over here. So I think it would be important to find someone who understands our industry specifically to help you with marketing, because strategy is the biggest piece. Before you can do any type of marketing, there has to be strategy development. And that's not just strategy for now, that's short and long-term strategy. So many people in the food and beverage industry were so overwhelmed with operations and day-to-day things that we're not thinking about things in the long term. So when you're engaging in a marketing agency, you want to make sure that they're planning and developing strategy on a quarterly basis and on an annual basis, so that you're always staying 30 to 60 days ahead of time, to give you time to develop all of the assets that you need to effectively make a quality marketing campaign. If you're gonna spend the money, then it should be quality over quantity. So what I find that works best when you're marketing your brand is to use an integrated communications approach. So you've got all the branding and all of that stuff down, but now we need to utilize different marketing tactics. So like I saw in the comments, somebody asked, well, what is the list? And the list is an email list. Who is your audience? Do you have a customer database? And that's something that I feel like our industry is 10 years behind on. I go to a lot of conventions for the food and beverage industry, and so many people haven't been collecting a database of their customers. And that's a missed opportunity, because if you can create an intimate relationship with your consumers, you can create that regenerative income or reliant income that's always going to be streaming. So I think, yeah, using an integrated communications approach is key when you're hiring a marketing agency.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying make sure that you do have a list, because that's going to be incredibly valuable. And listen, there's all kinds of CRMs out there, from MailChimp to Constant Contact to, and if you don't want to do any of that, at least get them in a spreadsheet. I mean, something. If anybody has ever called you about services, you have current clients, you have past clients, any of those things, you already have a list. It's a matter of gathering them. Your contact requests, your food questionnaires, your downloads, your catering chat, whatever the thing is, should be integrated on your website so they dump into your list. So I'm hearing you say your list and communicating with that list is very valuable. What would you say the next thing would be to start in? Would it be having somebody regularly post on social media for you as kind of the next step?
Yes, I think regularly posting on social media, but even before you can start posting on social media, we need to consider content creation. So developing photos and videos that are engaging, that will entice your audience to want to be interested in your brand. In today's world, video works 3 times better than a photo on social media. So it's so important to incorporate a video marketing strategy into your social media. And it's easy when you're in the culinary industry to showcase your beautiful food and your drinks, but it's also important to humanize the brand and show people. So I've taken a lot of courses with Meta, which is the owner of Facebook and Instagram. And what they are really pushing for currently for their algorithm is for you to incorporate people, faces. The algorithm knows whether or not there are hands or faces in the reels, as crazy as that sounds. So if you have staff that are, let's say we're doing a big catering and you can film your staff prepping all of the little portions and then serving people and do a little behind the scenes to showcase the culture of your company, that's going to do really well. On the other side, you could do something a little bit more polished if you're going for more of a luxury brand and do a showcase where you do a big catering and you bring in a videographer who films the prep, the people enjoying the canapes. Having that experience on video really allows the consumer to feel what it's like to experience your service, which is something that they could never do before. And then backing those videos with ad dollars and targeting them to the right audience with a really great call to action or lead can help drive the revenue, or at least inquiries for bookings or reservations or whatever that may be.
So I'm gonna ask you 2 questions, and it's not meant to make you uncomfortable at all. So
No, it's
you told me
okay.
I could ask these. The first question is, and this is for the benefit of a few people as I see their faces on here. They've invested in marketing. They've spent $5,000 a month. They spent $10,000 a month. They've spent the money in marketing. They see the analytic reports that recur once a month of your social media engagement is up, your this is up, your that is up, but it's not converting. So I want to be really clear to everyone. It is not marketing's job to convert. That is yours. Marketing's job gets them to you. You convert them. So I am not saying that marketing is not converting as in marketing's fault. What I'm saying is that by all analytics and reports, the marketing company's doing like phenomenal, but the phone's not ringing. There's no emails. There's no contact. There seems to be an incongruency. Can you speak to that?
So I think that's a fair point. There are 2 different types of marketing, and I feel like I have to be very clear with this with our clients. There is marketing for brand awareness, which is impression-based marketing, if you will, where we are showing the message over and over and over again to a consumer, because a consumer needs to see the messaging at least 3 to 5 times before it really sinks in and they start to remember who your brand is to make a purchasing decision and lead them down the marketing funnel in the long term. Impression-based marketing could be radio ads, television ads, social media ads for brand awareness. And those are things about, I would say, I only recommend that type of marketing to people who have larger ad budgets because they're not looking for that immediate sales conversion. They're looking for long-term strategy of marketing. Now, for clients that are looking for marketing that's going to lead directly to sales, then I do agree you have to have some way to measure this, because you're right. we could spend meta ad dollars and see like, oh, well, the video went viral and that's great. But if no one came in and bought anything, then it doesn't really matter, does it?
Correct.
So what I've found is that it's important to develop strategy and marketing campaigns that go around that advertising so you can measure, is that marketing campaign working? I'm going to use something from the restaurant industry that's very small and minuscule, just as an example, but let's say it's National Margarita Day, because in Texas, we love margaritas.
Yes, we do.
We love margaritas. It's not Margarita Day. If I run a social media campaign for $5 margaritas for National Margarita Day, and all of a sudden on Margarita Day, my sales, you know, I do average $4,000 in sales on a Friday. And this Friday for National Margarita Day, I did $6,000 in sales, and I pulled my PMix report and I had, you know, instead of selling the normal 25 margaritas, I sold 150 margaritas, then you would be able to measure analytically and sales wise that worked. And that's really the only way when it comes to social media conversion that you could measure that in store. Another way to measure that would have to be lead form. So like you were kind of saying earlier, it's your job to convert the lead. So let's say we're a catering company and we're doing a social media campaign around, let's say in October, wedding season is in Texas, October, because it's nice and cool, that maybe I'm running a campaign about booking your wedding catering during those months. And the advertising is going to a form for somebody to complete. And then it's your job to convert that lead into a sale. So that's another way that we could measure.
Tracking.
Tracking is
And I
important.
think
You have to track.
I think that's valuable because I don't think that's done enough. Because I think so many times we run Facebook ads or Google ads, and there is some A/B testing that's done, but oftentimes it's not tracked, it's not monitored. It's because what works for one business in one part of the country is not going to work the same for the same type of business in another part of the country. So one of my last questions for you is, marketing companies are not all created equal. And I'm not saying this to be negative. I've been in business for over 21 years. I have spent a lot of money in marketing. I have invested $10,000 a month and had no conversions. I've invested $2,000 a month on marketing help, outside marketing help, and it converted, the wheels fell off. Like, couldn't imagine it any other way. But yet, I want to know, and I know that other people have this question too, is can you give us some insight on how to choose a marketing company and what to look for?
I think industry knowledge, understanding where you're coming from, and I think someone who believes in your vision is important, who understands your brand through and through. And if you understand your brand through and through, then that'll be easier to make that connection. Sometimes the vibe just isn't right. You have to go with your gut instinct and make sure that you work well with that marketing agency, because what is the point of hiring an agency if you are not going to be a part of the strategy process? So many people hire us and then they don't show up to the Zoom meetings. They don't show up to the strategy sessions.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, why would you do that? I could certainly come up with the strategies for you, but unless you're actively involved, we're not going to make any headway and you're not doing yourselves any favors. So I think if you're going to choose a marketing agency, you want to make sure that they understand your industry, two, that they understand your passion and your vision of what you're trying to accomplish in the short and long term. And 3, you get along well with them, because you should be working side by side with them to achieve the goals for your brand, and take advantage of that. You're paying for that.
You know what and I know what's, because I'm watching some of their eyes, and I know what's behind their eyes. They're thinking, well, if everything else I have to do in business now to participate in my own marketing too, I don't have time for all that. So what I want to tell you is, one, you're too busy in your business. You're too busy in your business. When you become the CEO of your business, you're responsible for growth, vision, and having fun. Growth means you show up to your marketing calls. No one else can do that. That's you. Chopping an onion, you are not going to find clients behind your stove. Clients are not hiding behind your cutting boards. Clients are not in your back seat when you're delivering to your clients. They're not there. I promise you. I've looked. Many, oh, there's my thumbs up. They are also not at the grocery store when you're trying to figure out what yogurt to buy. They're not there. I promise you. So, Kim, if you
That
will.
is 100% right. You are
Oh.
absolutely right.
They're not there. I've looked for them. You can stop looking. I give you permission. They're not there. I looked for years. I never found them. They're not going to be there. They will never be there. I promise you. So most of you are just scared to let somebody else do it better than you. That is your problem. So what I need is, if you will make sure that your contact information is in the chat. Please make sure that that is there. And then also, I'm not seeing any questions currently. If I missed something, Heather, please let me know. I know that people have questions. This the number one thing that I get is marketing questions. So I know that they're going to have more, so they can follow up with you. And then, do you have an offer that you want to provide?
Yes, same thing. We do a complimentary analysis for all of our clients, or prospective clients, or anyone. Having been in the restaurant industry my whole life, it's nothing more makes me happy than to give complimentary advice and point someone in the right direction, because the service industry has done so much for me, and that's my honor to serve them back. So please, by all means, I will drop a link here to a form that you can fill out. And then we will develop, based on your brand, an analysis of what we see, just kind of letting you know, like, these are things that you're doing really well. These are areas of improvement. And then you can take that knowledge and go forward and do whatever you feel is best for your brand.
I want to be really clear what she's offering you. So who this woman is she was undergoing treatment last week, and she literally took my phone call to be on this summit. She allowed me to tell her all about you, who you are as business owners, and about this summit, and she showed up for you today. She is not going to push you. She is not going to hard sell you. She is here for you. That is who she is. So, Kim, thank you for being here today. So grateful to you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, you're getting all the hearts. I love that. I forgot there was a heart.
Thank you.
Emoji. I love that. Thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. We are going to go to John. Hi, John.
Hello.
So they can see you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Thank you for allowing us to run a little bit late. This has been absolutely amazing what everybody is sharing. So I am going to let John introduce himself, but I also want to tell you a little bit about who John is. And John is an attorney that has created his specialty around hospitality and the culinary industry. So he is one brave soul. I'm pretty sure he stays busy all the time as a result of that choice. So, but I do want to tell you, and John doesn't know that I'm going to say this. I have asked him to reach out to a few of our members because of some things that they have going on, and he has been very gracious with his time to help them. Before John answers some questions that I have for him, I want to be very, very clear about what this conversation is. He cannot, under any circumstances, give you legal advice. I will not be asking him about any type of legal advice. I do not need you in this Zoom call to ask specific questions about legal advice with a situation that you may or may not have going on. You can follow up with him about that, and it is very state specific, and he can help out in, I think, every state. Doesn't matter where you are, but I really want to be clear about that. Okay. Okay. Now, let's kind of start with, John, I need you to introduce yourself, your path. And then when you do that, I want to know, why in the world did you go into this specialty?
All right. Well, first off, that was an excellent disclaimer of my ethical responsibilities of not answering or not providing legal advice. To just kind of further that, though, I can provide legal educational information, and that's what we're going to discuss today. It just won't be pointed questions where I'm like, well, for your specific scenario, do this or don't do that. For that, you really do need to engage an attorney, whether it's myself or anyone else. So just to kind of tie that up a little bit more, but thank you, Deb, for that. So my background and how I got into my practice was that from first W-2 at 15 years old, all the way until I was 30, all I did was food and beverage. I've done independent restaurants, being back of the house, dishwasher, cook, front of the house. I've managed fine dining restaurants. I've built bar programs. I've been a somm, worked in hotels, banquet manager, pretty much anything F&B related. I've had some time doing it. I left hospitality in my early 30s to go to law school, started practicing in the nonprofit area, and kept getting pulled back into hospitality. And it's the industry that raised me. It's who I know. It's what I love. And so after some time, I finally was able to convince my wife, like, hey, I want to open up my own shop. But to do that, I really want to start focusing on hospitality. And she was gracious enough to say, I think you should do this and let's go for it. And it's been wonderful because I get to interact with the people that just mean the world to me. And I get to give back to the industry that raised me. I have taught restaurant management and beverage management classes at the University of North Texas at Dallas. If anyone has ever been an adjunct professor, they know that you really get paid pennies to do that. But I did it because, again, trying to give back to that industry, to the next, kind of leaders that are going to be going into this. And I bring that up because in my classes, I would always tell the students, on day one, I'm going to teach you about all the mistakes that I made as a young manager who wasn't trained properly. And so now that I've gone through legal training and I understand employment laws and all these other things that arise, I can share that with you. You're going to be better situated to, to work in these restaurants and create a better environment. And I take that same stance when I'm working with my hospitality legal clients, is that we can talk shop in a way that many other attorneys can't. They might be brilliant attorneys, but they don't really understand the nuances of your operation. And very much what, like Kim was just talking about, her background, it makes a world of difference. At least I believe so. And I think that my clients would attest to that it is very welcoming for them to explain something to me. And I'm like, oh, I got it. I know exactly what you're talking about. So that is why I decided to really build this practice, focus on hospitality, give back to that industry, but also knowing that so many of my colleagues steer away from hiring attorneys because they're always like, they're too expensive, right? Like, oh,
Or scary, let's add that.
They can be, absolutely. So that was another thing for me, was to try to break down that barrier and show that, no, you can find good legal help, and it's important to find that is still cost effective. That's my introduction.
It's so fascinating. You said the word, I grew up in culinary. And for those of us that did not necessarily grow up from the time you were, 12, or whatever the thing is. I think sometimes culinary grows us up. So it is definitely an industry that is not for the faint of heart. So that kind of hit me when you said that. I'm like, or you get grown up. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So what are the most common legal issues you encounter in this industry? What is it that you see over and over and over again?
I mean, there's a lot of you kind of have to think about it in different silos, because each of you in your business, if you are, you have your own brick and mortar, or if you are working in someone else's space, you likely have a lease or you have a license. And so there's that area. If you have employees, you have a whole other area that you have to think about. Within that, things like independent contractors. It's such a broad kind of practice area, but you see the same things over and over again. So I'm often not trying to like reinvent the wheel with anyone. It's more of just saying, hey, you're trying to, for example, on the employment side, if you are trying to bring on a new employee, here's things that you need to think about when you're onboarding them. Here's things that you need to think about, with any kind of employee handbook. Like, gone are the days, or hopefully they are, of seeing employee handbooks that are 90 pages long and no one reads. But there still is a reason to have an employee handbook that covers certain duties and obligations. I am a big fan of having an employment letter that does outline what are, is this at will? Is this not? Is this a contract? Like, what are we really getting into? And so having those things in place allow you to have the foundation to really grow from there, but also your employees know what they're getting into. And so then it becomes the other question that I see oftentimes is independent contractors. And there is so much bad information on the internet about independent contractors. So many people think like, oh, I can just hire this person as independent contractor and it'll all be fine. Please don't do that. As some background to this, independent contractors, the IRS has their own test. The Department of Labor has their own test. On the state side, every state has their own test. Oh, but just wait a little bit. You have to find out that certain things like workers' compensation within the state also has another test. So there's all these different tests that you have to think about to make sure that you're passing if you're going to bring someone on as an independent contractor. Yet so many times I have clients or potential clients come to me and say like, oh, this is how I've been doing it. And I look at their independent contractor agreement and I'm like, okay, this says this, but let's talk about the practical side, the operational side. Are you really doing these things? Because if not, then that contract is worthless. So, I know this is kind of a long way to what you asked, but like each of these areas, from your real estate to your employment to vendor contracts, it's important to take the time and work with someone who's going to put you in a place for success. It is important to spend a little bit of money at the beginning to do these things properly, rather than spend 10x of that down the road to fix a problem. I'm much more expensive if I have to fix something down the road than I am preventative at the beginning to just counsel you on how to do it correctly, which is really my favorite part, is to work with business owners and say, hey, let's talk about your business plan. What are you doing? Where are you going? How are you going to be hiring people? What are you going to be up to? Let's make sure that I'm giving you the right tools so you don't have to think about legal after that.
Okay, I have to say something. Y'all look at me. Isn't it great he's normal? Like, seriously, like, isn't that just awesome? You guys know exactly what I mean. We're having a conversation. And I understand all the words coming out of his mouth. So,
actually, I love that you said that, Deb. And again, when you are seeking any kind of help, I'm not even just legal, but especially on the legal side, if you hire an attorney and all they do is hand you a contract and they don't explain it to you, they just give it to you and like run with it, right? That doesn't give you any, like, it doesn't provide you with a real service. I mean, at some point in time, with like ChatGPT and AI and stuff like that, you're going to be able to just type in like, I need a contract. But you won't understand, most people will not. I shouldn't, just say a blanket statement, but like most people will not understand the content of that. And so for me, a big part of working with my clients is to make them the smartest person in the room when they're working with that other side. So if we draft a contract together, I'm going to explain everything thoroughly. So that way, when they go produce that contract to a vendor or to a potential client, and the client asks them a question about it, they're like, oh yeah, this is what this means, right? They don't have to say like, oh, let me, I don't know, let me check with my attorney. It's like, no. You were hiring me not just to draft this, but to learn this information. That's the service that I look at providing. That's how I run mine. But again, that's also the professor teacher in me is like, that's what I find fascinating and exciting, is to really educate my clients so they don't have to worry about this stuff and they can just go and operate.
That's amazing. Oh, Sarah, I see your hand. We'll get to you here in just a minute, okay? So with COVID, with the kind of sue happy community that so many is that it is in the States, the liability, the employees, all the things. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing kind of changes in the legal landscape in the hospitality industry over the last several years. What are those trends you're seeing?
Well, of course, COVID, one thing that like really jumped out of this was, and probably very important for a lot of like caterers that might be in this call, is like your force majeure clause. And this is like, when you think about it, this is the acts of God, right? Like things that you have no control over that can stop you or the other party from performing. These clauses existed for, hundreds of years in contracts, but they didn't become really prominent until COVID, because all of a sudden that was a way to stop performing. And now we're seeing everyone throw that in there, but also depending if you are the service provider or service recipient, trying to limit that to where it's like, well, it's okay, but only for a certain amount of time, right? Like, because some people still want to have that ability to make you pay them, or, again, depending on what side you're on. So I would say force majeure is something that is really come about more heavily now. Terminations, also a big thing. When you're doing your vendor contracts, do you have an out? I mean, depending again, what side you're on, how can you terminate if someone is not performing? What kind of notice do you have to provide? There's always things like that where I see someone that's like, oh, I have this contract, but I want to get out of it. And I'm like, well, I don't see a way unless they breach the contract. And with that, a big part of it is not every breach gives you the right to just stop the contract. There is a term that you'll see in and it's called just like material breach. And what that really means is something has happened so bad that there's no reason you should have to perform anymore. Like the other side really screwed up. But that takes a high threshold to get into. So what you're seeing more now is, even in leases, parties putting in there like, this is what a material breach is, like defining that. So that way it's very hard for someone to get out of a contract, because it says this is the only way you can get out. Like if a material breach is going to be this, and if it's not that, it's not a material breach, it's just a breach. So those are the things you see often. Along that same lines, having cure periods is something that is missed a lot. And what I mean by that is, if someone is going to have a breach, the ability to fix it within a couple days. And you'll see that often in your leases where it's like, if you fail to pay rent, it's a breach, but technically they'll give you like 5 extra days, right? Like something like that, that cure period. You might want to have things in there like that for those unforeseen circumstances that you need a little bit of extra time. So it's not like, hey, I failed to perform this and now someone can just stop paying me and they're going to fire me. More of, once I failed and they tell me that I haven't delivered, I have X amount of time to complete and fulfill that. And so this cure period can work to your benefit of just saying, hey, things out of my like control happened, and this is my way to still perform, and you're not going to cancel my contract just because of this one thing.
There's The reason why I'm a little bit speechless is because I'm kind of thinking through my day-to-day right now and my contracts and some other things that you said, and I thought, oh my goodness, I never even thought about some of these things that you're talking about, and especially the, kind of the acts of God. And yeah, there's a much bigger conversation to be had there, but I need to move on because I know that other people are starting to ask questions, and Brenda, I see your hand as well. Thank you for explaining that. I was wondering about what was happening in the legal landscape as a result of COVID, and you answered a lot of questions that I had. So many people used COVID as an excuse for a whole lot of things that just should not be an excuse. And I thought that that would start to affect people legally. And you just mentioned a lot about that. I know for a lot of members in this group, they often have questions about leases. And I want to say just a caveat, you guys are hilarious in the chats. Thank you for being so active in that. And Tall, you're most welcome. You said you're grateful, amazing people you have found. Thank you for that. What I have to say is that was a direct message to Tall. I'm sorry I called you out to know is you're most welcome. Other people have texted that to me as well, or private messaged me as well. And I don't know that I found them. I think it was more of an attraction than anything. I'm telling you, when you're in the right mindset and your heart is in the right place, who and what you attract is just simply amazing. So thank you for recognizing that. And some of you actually are having questions about the coaching community and then just questions as a whole. Heather's going to drop a link to my calendar if you guys have questions about joining this community, as well as other questions about coaching or anything like that. Heather's going to drop a link to my calendar that you can certainly schedule with me on that. So since contracts are a big part of this community, something that often needs to be negotiated, I always tell people, our coaching clients, when they send me the contract, I said, first and foremost, I can tell you what I see in here. I'm not an attorney. You need an attorney. Let me stress to you, do not sign this contract without an attorney. Are we clear that you need an attorney? Okay, but so often it would be so helpful to understand more about like lease contracts. So what are some of the key considerations when drafting contracts for the hospitality clients that you want to make sure that are, I know this is a really big question, so you take this in any capacity that you want, but what are some key considerations when either reading contracts or drafting contracts? I know there's two sides, such as vendor agreements, employee contracts, lease agreements. Kind of talk to us about contracts.
Okay. Number one, every contract is different. I mean, so even just within leases, right? Every space is different. Every landlord is different, every tenant. So while some things might be boilerplate at the beginning, you should be able to negotiate within reason, right? I mean, the one thing to remember, especially on the lease side, is that there's no such thing as a fair lease. I mean, fair would be both parties sharing risk evenly. There's not a landlord in the world that is going to share evenly with a tenant. Like, that just isn't possible. So what you're looking for is a lease that is reasonable to operate. Like, you understand what is happening, what your obligations are, and you feel you can actually satisfy those. Where we're seeing a lot of issues, especially on the hospitality side, is leases where the tenants are saying like, oh yeah, like they're doing like a build out or something else, that they can perform this in a certain amount of time at a certain cost. And then it always drags longer and it always costs more than you think it does. So while that's not a legal concern, it is a concern that you're going to see in a lease. And so giving yourself a little bit of extra time in certain areas is always going to be beneficial. When you're budgeting, budget more. Again, not a legal thing, but something that I just see happen so often. And people are like, it's more expensive and now it's taking longer and I can't open yet. And it's like, well, that's why you build a little bit of extra time. And so you really want to make sure that whatever contract you're getting into, again, whether it's vendor, lease, that number one, you're understanding the terms. That there's nothing that you couldn't, if someone asked you, what does this paragraph mean, that you couldn't at least give some sort of explanation for. Not a legal treatise, but you should have an understanding of every single paragraph that is in there and what it's really going to. You also want to make sure that like you are thinking about how this is going to affect your business. Like, is this really drafted for you? There are so many times where I have clients come to me and they're like, hey, I found this contract off of the internet. And it's like, why? Like, no, we're not. First off, I'm not going to use that. Like, we're not starting at that point in time. So we really want to have something that is drafted, like on the drafting side, that is drafted for your business. And so spend the time with your attorney to explain the business, what you're trying to achieve, and having something that is drafted just for that, not just a pull off the shelf and like this should do. Like, that won't give you the protections that you need. So much of contract law is really all about allocating your risk and understanding where that risk is coming from. So where can you be liable by the performances that you're doing? You know, where are you going to be, you know, responsible for reimbursing someone? And I use the term reimbursement, but the language you'll see in a contract is indemnity. This is a huge legal concept that I'm sure many of your contracts, like even if you're looking at your cell phone provider contract, it will have indemnity in there. What does that mean? It's a fancy legal word talking about reimbursement. That if a third party wants to sue like the other party that you're in contract with for an action that you did, you're going to reimburse them. It gets looked over all the time by lay people because they're just like, I don't understand what this really means. And again, it's a hard concept, but it's a really big one because that is liability for you. That is where you're going to have to pay out money to defend something based on an action that you did. And this comes up really big in hospitality. Indemnity is everywhere. So I know like so much of this is very broad, and I hope I'm not putting anyone to sleep on this, but it really just means taking the time to understand what you're getting yourself into. Contracts are there because without them, people can say, oh, I didn't agree to this and walk away. And while like oral contracts can be enforceable in certain circumstances, the point of the contract is to lay down what the party's intent is. And I love contracts for that reason. Like, I am such a big contract fan. That's why my practice is like 99% all transactional contracts, because I enjoy taking what my clients are telling me they're trying to achieve and putting it into a contract that I know they are protected, but also what they're trying to achieve is laid out in stone. Like, we know what the intent was behind these two parties coming together and agreeing to this. And if you are looking at a contract that you have and you're not seeing that, then whoever drafted that or wherever you got it missed the mark.
I learned a hard lesson on contracts. I had a lawyer teach me one time that to pay attention to what I call the fine print of should the two parties go to court, of where the actual city and state that court case will be held.
Yes.
I was actually really shocked to find that you know, just because I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing business with a, you know, my leasing person, you know, company, that, you know, well, the guy's right here, he's in an office in Dallas, Texas. Oh, no. I would have to go like
yeah.
to.
That's an excellent one. And what's amazing about that, Deb, is that generally that clause, which is called like a governing law clause or a forum clause, those are at the end of a contract.
Yep.
In what is usually the miscellaneous section.
Yep.
That is complete boilerplate, and everyone just is like, whatever, I'm
Yeah,
okay
let's
with this.
sign
Like,
it.
that looks normal. And then something bad happens. You're like, wait, I have to go to California for this?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, so.
And I'm paying all the court fees and his lawyer cost.
Yeah, this is the negotiation part. If someone is saying, again, this clause, the governing, you know, governing law clause or forum clause, if they're saying we want for any lawsuit or arbitration to take place somewhere else where you don't, like, your business is not operating, that's a negotiation point for you to say, if I'm going to concede that, I want something else in return. If not, we need to agree that it's going to be here in Dallas, Texas, where I'm operating, because I don't operate in California. I don't need to go there. But if you're going to make me, and I'm going to agree to it, then that's going to be because you're going to give me something else. That brings up really something that I see very often is, especially in leases, with independent like restaurants or other culinary businesses that are kind of like new, they think that there is no room for negotiation, and that is just not true. You absolutely can negotiate. Also, if you're not happy with the way that the landlord is treating you in the lease negotiation, and you're not happy with the way the lease looks, that should tell you enough about what it's going to be like when, excuse my language, but shit hits the fan and you have to deal with that landlord. It is so telling when a landlord is hard to deal with on the, on the lease negotiation, that when things go bad, they're not going to move an inch for you down the road because they now have you locked in. Why would they? So the old the mantra of like location, 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 me personally, I think that is just not true anymore. You really need to find a good landlord and have a good lease. Again, it's not going to be fair. They have more leverage than most, tenants will have, but you can still make it to where it's a reasonable lease for you and you understand where your obligations are. But that is one of the biggest things is so many small businesses are like, well, I thought we couldn't negotiate, and so I just accepted all this. And I'm like, wow, you don't understand how like big your liability is right now.
John,
Guarantee.
what I usually equate that to with landlords and leases is any like personal relationship when you get into, especially, and I'm gonna pick on women a little bit, but oh, it's okay, I can change him. And then you're surprised when he doesn't change, or whatever partner that you're with. Oh, it's okay, I can change him. We think the same thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to start my business. I'll just sign the lease. They'll get better.
Yes.
They never get better.
No, because they have you. I mean,
Yes.
they have the paper that says this is what we agreed to, and you're stuck now. So
That's right.
it takes the time to do that. And I think people often don't give themselves enough credit on their gut instinct of this isn't a good deal for me. And they go through it just because like, well, I think it'll get better. I think it'll be okay. But it's like, no, if you were not having a good experience with negotiation and that lease is not something you're comfortable with, do not sign it. And that goes for any contract beyond just leases. Like if you think that this vendor that you're going to work with is not, going to deliver, you feel that already, you should take a step back and go look at others.
One of our community members the other day presented a lease to take over this large commercial kitchen space, and I said, listen, here's how you should respond. Take a big Sharpie, because I know you have one, it's black, and I need you to write shit show across it and just send it back to them. Like it's just don't even bother entertaining it. Can we go to questions now? Are you okay with that?
If I can just say one last thing on this point, but then yes, I'd love to answer questions.
Go ahead.
Due diligence is not just also getting an attorney, but speaking with other individuals, other businesses that use that same like party. So for example, if you're going to sign a lease, go talk to the other tenants. Find out how that landlord has actually acted when things go bad, if there is a problem. Same thing when you're doing vendor contracts. Find out who else they're in business with and talk to them and say like, hey, have you had any issues with deliveries or anything like that? There is so much that happens outside of the legal, like, realm of a paper that you can go find out, and that will help you in your negotiation. That will also just give you a piece of like, your peace of mind that you feel better about getting into this. Again, just not rushing to do things because you think you have to. Take the time, due diligence, find out, references, right? In a way, that's really what this comes down to. But oftentimes that gets overlooked because people think I just have to sign this. And it's like, you don't have to. Take that time and do it right, but spend a little time to see if other people who are using that same service are recommending them.
I've also
And-
learned with contract negotiations that if there's pressure to sign it, that I should 100% walk away. That has never, ever failed me. I don't care if it looks like perfection, the space you've always wanted at the price point you've always wanted. I have always learned that if there is pressure to sign it, that I should just walk away. Sarah, you had a question?
Yes, I was just wondering when you're like seeking legal advice, if you need to find someone in your state or like I'm in Florida, like I could work with you, or would it be better to find someone in Florida? Like how, I don't know if like the laws are different or how that necessarily works state to state.
I'm going to give you the typical lawyer answer, right? It depends because it does. If you are doing litigation, you absolutely need to have someone that is in your state. If you're dealing with things that are very state specific, I would also recommend that you use people that are local to you. So many of the things that I work on that are just more contracts, that is done like that. There's not really much state law that would go into it. And if there is, I also tell my clients like, hey, I can get you 95% of the way, but we're going to bring someone else in who can assist with that other 5% to make sure we're not missing anything that could be state specific. So it really just depends on what you're looking for help doing. There are certain areas of the law that really do become very state specific. And so that is gonna just matter like at that point in time when you're seeking help that you tell them like, here what it is. And like that attorney should be able to tell you like, hey, I don't feel comfortable. And that's something that I do. Like if it's something that I am not comfortable working on, if it is something that I ethically or legally cannot, I'm going to tell you. I would rather you get good representation elsewhere than to have mediocre coming from me because it's an area of law that I don't practice regularly, or if it's something that is state specific that I couldn't learn and work on. So my hope is that when you're reaching out to attorneys that they have the same moral compass and ethical compass that I have, that it's like not just taking everything that comes through the door, but really thinking about, am I the best person for this? So much of that though comes from my hospitality background and that I want to give really great customer service. And so that's what I would be trying to do is hear you out on what your plan is, what you need assistance with. And I'll tell you yes or no. And there are plenty of times when I have turned down business that I would have loved to have, but I'm just thinking I'd rather that individual be 100% satisfied. And to do that, they really need someone else that has a different set of expertise or a different locale. So again, it depends.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brenda, you have a question?
Yeah, so continuing with Sarah's question,
Okay.
I'm in California. What will be the title of an attorney that I have to look for? Because there are 20 million different types of attorneys. Who will be the attorney for us for like caterers and personal shifts and stuff like that?
Okay.
What the title?
So what I will tell you is there are, I mean, if you really broke down my practice, right? I focus on hospitality, I mean, that's why I like, this is my logo. So you can see that hospitality law firm.
Yay
So-
for branding.
Yes, I hope Kim would approve that. I mean, so for me, when I decided to start my firm, I did not choose to use like, John Reyna and Associates or John Reyna, attorney at law, right? Like I wanted for my brand to be that I focus on hospitality and also nonprofits. Those are my two industries. You might not find a law firm that says that outright, like the way that I do. So you might have to just find someone that is like, John Smith and Associates, but within that, looking at their practice areas, looking at their specialties and seeing, are they doing the things that you want? At the end of the day, I'm a business attorney. I just happen to work with industries like hospitality and nonprofits, but I'm just doing business transactional work for them. So you're looking for a business law firm. At the core, that's what it needs to be. However, I really do believe that there is value in finding individuals that or law firms or CPAs that don't have too big of like a breadth of like services, right? So like if they just say they do hospitality, but you call them and you start talking to them and you don't feel that they actually understand what you do, that should be a red flag. Go find someone else. Everyone is, I mean, we're in sales. At the end of the day, like lawyers are still trying to sell their firm to you to come and hire them. So most attorneys are going to be like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. You need to dig deeper and find out how often do they work with your type of business, right? What do they see? What, like, you can, I mean, you know your operations, you know the headaches that are going on. Use that to your advantage to interview them. Don't let them just say that they do things and like, yeah, of course we do. Like, no, get into the nitty gritty. It's very much, you know, you are interviewing them not only for a job because you're going to hire them, but hopefully if they're the right firm or the right attorney, for a long-term relationship. And that takes making sure that they can provide what you need. So looking for, you know, again, business. All right, underneath that, are they doing things in hospitality? Within that, are they doing, if you're a caterer, right? Versus someone that's a brick and mortar. I mean, even though they're both hospitality, they are different, right? They're going to have different challenges. And so making sure that you are asking the right questions and getting a thorough enough answer to where you feel comfortable bringing this person or law firm onto your team. Because that's, in my mind, what I see myself as. I am just an extension of my client's team. And I love that. That is why I'm excited to work with my hospitality clients, because I'm like, I'm back in the game, right? I'm back in hospitality. I'm just, you know, adjacent to it, but that's what's exciting for me. So you want to find someone who, again, is going to understand what you are going through, would be my recommendation. And there are attorneys that have that. I mean, I know hospitality attorneys across the country that are excellent. And many of my favorites are similar to me in that they worked in hospitality. So they get it on a different level. I would recommend trying to find those individuals.
I want to interject real quick, Brenda, and tell you what John is not saying. John is being so sweet. And what you need to know is him, like he can help you and he can be your attorney. Anybody if you are on this call today, he can literally be your attorney. You don't have to go find somebody. This is one of the reasons I brought him here, and he will let you know if you need to find somebody in your state. Fortunately and unfortunately, in the past 20-something years in business, I've had to deal with a lot of attorneys. I just have. It happens in business. You cannot be in business without a really good business attorney, and one that understands our industry is incredible. That's why I was so happy to find John. And plus, he's humble. He would never tell you, Brenda, me, like I can do this, me. But he helped you to understand now who to look for. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You'll get a phone call from me very soon.
Speaking of that, John, could you please make sure your contact information is in the chat? And then once you do that, if you have an offer or a gift for our members today, please let us know that.
So I saw Heather already posted my email
She did,
and
okay.
my website. So you have that there. You know, phone number, I can type that in as well. What I will let you know is you know, for me, I do consultations, 30-minute consultations, that are $99 for a half hour. For anyone that is here right now, I'm going to waive that. You've stayed on long enough to listen to all of my legal jargon and stuff like that. Like that's the least I can do. But also I know just from listening to the last couple speakers and knowing others that were on here, I couldn't unfortunately be part of this all day long, but you received incredible content, and Deb, just outstanding for you and your team. Heather, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But please reach out to me and we can set up a consultation. We'll waive that. And we'll just chat. And again, I want for you to feel comfortable with whether it's myself or whomever you go hire, because you really want to be able to call them. The worst thing that can happen is you hire an attorney, you're like, oh, every time I reach out to them, like it costs too much money, or like they never really help me in the right way. And I just like, I don't want to, like, that shouldn't be the case. You should want to, reach out to them to find out. I mean, so many times, again, fixing problems that could have been just avoided is more expensive and detrimental to your business. I mean, bottom lines matter. So if you can spend a little bit of time talking to a trusted advisor and saying, like, here's where I think I want to go with this. Do you see any issues? And spending a little bit of time and money on that rather than jumping without looking. And then you come to that same trusted advisor and you're like, hey, we've been doing this for the last year. And they're like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Why didn't you come and ask me this? Like, it does happen. It happens pretty regularly. And now with certain clients, they are just in the habit of like, let's just reach out and ask John. Like, let's just, before we go too far, right? And it's not because I want to be negative. Like, good attorneys shouldn't be about saying no to you. It should be about saying, how do we get you to yes without breaking the law? Like, that's really what they should be trying to get you to. So hopefully you find that in someone. And that's what I try to provide.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so, so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Is that not amazing? Oh, gosh. Okay. I want to introduce you now to Kutina. Kutina, could you please wave?
Hello, everyone.
First, right, when you take it, listen. We had originally somebody by the name of Rachel was supposed to start off this summit, all things HR for Culinary. She had a medical emergency 2 days ago that she had to go take care of, and Kutina has stepped in her place. Not only stepped into her place, she allowed me to put her in now, and now we are running 30 minutes late. So please, please, please show your gratitude. Send this woman some hearts and let her know how grateful you are that she is here, because really, yes, really and truly, the fact that she has chosen HR and the hospitality industry is something that is just, I can't really fathom. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I have some questions for you.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. Hello, hello, hello. Sending hearts to everyone. So I think I'm the last speaker, so I will try to keep this as lively, informative as possible. So yeah, I'm Kutina Ruhumbika. Name rhymes, funny name. I was telling with Deb yesterday, I'm an immigrant, so I always have to share that I think it's important, that visibility, especially in our industry, right? When you think about the people that work for us, a lot of them come from different countries. I was born in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Moved to the States when I was 8 years old with my family. And obviously, did my schooling here, went to college. My college, I majored in marketing and fashion merchandising. And I thought I was going to be this marketing executive, somewhat similar to what an earlier speaker spoke to. And, reality set in, which was 9/11, and jobs were scarce. And I somehow found myself working at a staffing agency. And that staffing agency, my first role, and Deb, I didn't share this with you. So at the staffing agency, they hired me as a recruiter, and my job was to place temporary workers on the third shift at the Keebler Cookie Factory in a small town in like the middle of Georgia. You had to have a clean criminal background check and pass a drug test. Now we all
That's
know,
not hard at all.
now we all know, and I'm like, this 22-year-old kid thinking I can do this, and it was the hardest. And so in that Keebler Cookie Factory, they had outsourced this hiring to quite a few other staffing agencies because they just couldn't fill it. And so I realized quickly, well, who would want this shift, this job, and who doesn't receive these kinds of opportunities? And the immigrant in me, tapped into the Hispanic community within our area, made friends with that community, allyship, and just created a relationship of trust. And a lot in the community, the reason why they weren't even applying is because they didn't speak English, right? But they had all the other qualities. So I figured out a way to, well, how do we train this community to do the job? It didn't require talking, right? It was boxing cookies, it was machine equipment, really easy. And so I convinced the Keebler Cookie Factory, like, hey, I have this workforce population that is looking for opportunity. They want to work, but they don't know how to interview. I can train them on soft skills, how to communicate. And I think we can fill this, third shift. And that third shift is about 75 employees. Long story short, in a matter of a year, we owned that entire account. I had cousins, moms, dads, everyone working together within that community. And I fell in love with the hospitality industry, and why I realized this is the industry of second chances, right? What other industry can you go into without having a real, I call it maybe skill set, right? That's defined here in this country, but being able to apply yourself and grow, right, into something that's so incredible, and not only being able to support yourself, but support your family, whether it's here in other countries. And then from there, I'm so thankful to have had great mentors in my career, throughout my career, that really just lifted me up as they grew in their career, right? So these were mentors who kind of carved the niche for me. And for me, again, as an immigrant, a Black woman, right, in this industry, back in the day, I didn't see many people that looked like me. It was very, male dominated. And having people that could, and your education oftentimes it's just not enough, especially in our industry. You have to have proven and demonstrated capabilities. So I was fortunate to have mentors who saw my potential, similar to how I saw the potential in that Hispanic community. And they lifted me up and they said, hey, you know what? You can be an executive, you can lead HR. And so every step of the way, I had someone in the background carrying me until, I've spent the last, say, 10 to 12 years helping scale businesses as head of HR, scaling organizations to do two things: either transact, meaning they IPO, or they're sold to another organization. It's fun. I love what I do. I love the people. I love food. I just couldn't think of any other industry to work in.
We are glad that you chose us because, oh my goodness, do we need you. So it sounds like that it's fascinating that you mentioned how creative you got creative you had to be trying to get that third shift at Keebler filled. And I'm noticing that in today's employee marketplace, that business owners are having to get very creative with how and where they find employees. So one of the biggest questions that's often asked of our community members is I'm leaving this very open-ended because I think that you're gonna have a lot of words around this, is so many times they say, I just can't find good employees. Or they're impossible to find, or there's no good employees out there. What would you say about this or recommend?
I think, when I hear that, I always, ask that individual who's saying that, well, why do you feel that way, right? I can go to any restaurant or any, retailer and find exemplary, right? Employees. So they exist. So at first I say, what's happening within your business for you to feel that way? Right? What's happening? Is it that you're not attracting the right talent? And let's ask ourselves why. What's your value proposition? Right? It is 2024. I think we all are old enough to have seen how much the industry has changed, right? Even through COVID, in the last 4 or 5 years, last 10 years. So there has to be a different value proposition. What do you bring into the table? I'll tell you right now, when we're hiring, our employees, they're not looking for a job. They're looking for community. They're looking for belonging. They're looking for, do I feel safe here? Right. So as an employer, if you are able to convey that, right, as you are hiring or as you're advertising for positions, you will find that there is an employee population out there that's seeking that. And the number one reason why oftentimes employees leave jobs, sitting from HR standpoint, I can tell you, it's not the job. Oftentimes it's the manager, it's the environment that they're in, because 90% of the times that they show, they go into the same job somewhere else. Right? Whether you're a front of house person, you're going to quit that role and go exactly to the very similar role, but you're looking for more belonging and more community. So whenever, again, I hear that, Deb, I go back to, what is your value proposition? What are you offering potential hires for them to say, yes, I feel good about working here?
You know, what's fascinating about that is I'm really glad that you said that, because so often, I'd mentioned it before, we used to throw up a job posting and like, we have this ad, we have a job, we're going to pay you this much. Why are you not flooding through our door? And we forgot about the other side of it, of this is the life that we're going to provide you that you can have outside of this company. There is not that typical, so we don't write it from the perspective of the employee. We are so used to writing it from the perspective of the employer. So I'm actually really glad that you use the word community and you use the word safe, because I'm even thinking now how whenever I write my job postings, because let me go back, how when we write our job postings, how we can say that and we can help them understand that will help them be more attractive to who we are, what we do. Because while I know these things are inside of my company, no one would know that if they're coming to work for me. So that leads me to,
real quick, one thing I also wanted to add
from
the community standpoint, is well-being. Right? I think we've all seen a shift into how we're all prioritizing well-being. I am prioritizing my well-being, right, at work. And so again, it ties back to safety and community. We're all looking for well-being as well. So I think when you're thinking about who to hire, when to hire, or telling yourself there aren't any good employees, ask yourself, how are you promoting well-being? So for example, for one thing that I've done in other companies is allow longer leaves of absences, right? Unpaid. So someone wants to pursue another hobby, right? Or go learn a different skill somewhere else. They say they are also a performer on Broadway. I live in New York, so we have lots of our employees, they're on Broadway. And rather than being put in a position where they have to technically quit their job and, hey, this Broadway stint may only be for 4 to 6 weeks, and they're wondering, do I have employment when I come back? We tell them, sure, good luck, go. When you're done with that, you have a job, right? Come back to us. That's part of that well-being, right? That's creating that security for that individual, knowing that, hey, you know what? I am free to go explore other things, and then I can return back home where it's safe, and I'll be welcomed with open arms.
That's interesting. I really never thought of it that way, because so often from the business owner, you think to yourself, oh, you just made it so much harder on everybody else that works here. I mean, I never thought about the other side of that. That could be a great benefit for somebody coming to work. There's a fine line, because eventually they have to come to work for you and not just always be gone, and you keep them there. But I think that there is certainly a give and take. So that leads me into I'm often asked, is there anything besides financial compensation that we can offer our current staff, or even as a bonus to attract new staff? You mentioned maybe an extended leave to go work on a hobby or do what they love. Any other creative ideas out there that you know of?
Yeah, I think, especially for whether you are an owner that is just starting to scale your business, or even when you're established, right? Oftentimes when we're thinking of what else to provide to our employees, there's a cost associated with it. And you think to yourself, gosh, can't afford that, can't do that. But I think one of the first things, I chatted through is being able to promote well-being and a work-life balance. I think that's so important. You want to create an environment where, yes, people enjoy coming to work, they like coming to work, you are responsive as an employer to their needs. I think flexible work arrangements, right? This should be a give and take relationship. And I think, you know, as we're all, you know, if you work for someone, you know, you're giving a lot of yourself. But for me as an employer, I always challenge myself as, what am I giving back to our employees that's more than a paycheck? What else do they need? How can I add to their life? I think those flexible work arrangements are incredibly important. Being able to shift and work around their schedule. You know, obviously not everyone has that flexibility, but if you do, I think it goes a long way. I use the example, again, I'm in New York, and, you know, we have a large Islamic Muslim population here in New York. And yesterday was Eid. You know, Eid is, you know, they celebrating the end of Ramadan. And so for most, you know, of my friends that work in HR, they're telling me, hey, you know what, this is a big holiday for our Muslim employee population. We're giving them the day off and it's paid. Like, how incredible is that? It's one day out the year. Anyone who was scheduled to work, you have that day off, it's paid. Think about that loyalty, right? Think about what that person then goes and tells their community, their friends. Again, that's offering a bit more, going above and beyond it. It's not PTO, it's not take a day off. You don't have to count for it. It's just, hey, this is adding on to that employee. Then the other piece too I talked about is obviously health and wellness benefits. I think perks and discounts, where applicable, like where you can do this. So for us, one thing that we do in other companies is bartering, right? With other retailers, other hospital, you know, other restaurant companies. So rather than just giving them a discount somewhere, we barter and trade. Hey, if you work with us, we have a relationship with, you know, this smoothie place across the street. And as long as you work with us, you get a free smoothie, they get a free XYZ from us.
Oh, wow.
Right. So when you think about your cost of goods, it doesn't cost you anything, right? To be able to make that trade, and your employees know, oh, wow, when you work with this company, you get this free thing from their, you know, from this other company that's not even associated with them, but they're just friends. Again, that's all part of building that community. And I think rewards and recognition are so important, no matter where you are in your career. I think we all appreciate when we're recognized, right? It doesn't have to be a gold star on your chest. It doesn't have to be a trophy. I think something that we can offer that is just part of just being a human is a thank you to your employees. Thank them for doing the right thing when no one's looking. Thank them for
Integrity.
doing something that going above and beyond, that's not being requested of them. It doesn't mean you penalize other employees for not doing it, but being able to thank that person. Hey, you know what? I saw what you did for that customer. You opened that door, you held that door open, or you ran out for their order because you realized it didn't have napkins in there. Thank you so much. That goes a long way. People want to feel appreciated and acknowledged and recognized. And I think the other piece too is just finding ways to build community. Again, you know, within your employee population. One thing that we did, you know, for Women's History Month, for example, is again, part of building community is we did a clothing drive, right? So again, it doesn't cost us anything. We tied it to, hey, it's spring cleaning, it's getting warmer in New York City. Let's do a clothing drive and give them to women's shelters, right? In our, you know, within our community. So we did that with our commissary. We did that in our other locations too. We were able to collect lots of clothes. It's a way of team building. Then we found healthy competition between locations, and then those employees are then able to then go out and deliver that. They feel tied and connected to their community and one another. And then guess what? They're already asking, when is the next one?
I love that, what you just said, the sense of giving back as a community, because so often we think team building. We need to go out to eat. We need to go to Dave and Buster's. We need to go. And I never thought about coming together and from a place of being more charitable to help another group as a team building opportunity. That's invaluable. I seriously have a whole page of notes so far from the things that you've talked about. Thank you. You've opened my eyes to so many things that honestly that I should have done better, and now that I want to do in the future. One of my questions is so many business owners are afraid to hire because they feel like that there's just too much liability or they don't know how. So we literally have business owners that are just drowning because they can't or won't take that next step. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, I'll go back to, when you're ready to hire, right? Obviously, it comes from a need. As an owner, you should have reached the place where you can no longer do it. There aren't enough hours in a day, right? There just aren't, because sometimes what I hear owners say is, we now have X amount of a location, so that means we now need to hire this role. What do you really need to? I always push back. Is there someone else that can do it? Can you do it? Right? Like, let's make sure that we have maximized, and optimized for what we have internally before you make that hire. So again, most owners will sit back and say, well, I think we do have some bandwidth here and there. I'll ask, is it full-time? Do you really need someone full-time? Do you really need to spend those resources? So again, making sure that you have reached your bandwidth and there aren't enough hours in the day. And I think the next thing is I find that fear in not knowing exactly what you want, right? And how to scope it out. And so really challenging yourself and making yourself being able to scope out that work and making sure that, when you're explaining it to someone, you should be able to explain to a 5-year-old, whether it's a marketing person, whether it's someone in finance. I always step back and ask myself, can you explain it to a 5-year-old and make it make sense? And that person, when you're interviewing, can they explain it to you as if they were a 5-year-old kid? If they can't, they're BSing you. Nothing is that complicated. Nothing is, as an owner, you can tell a child, I run a restaurant. I run a bakery. Oh, okay. What is a bakery? We make cookies. We make donuts. Got it. Right.
You said one of the things that we often talk about this community is also hiring forward, and that concept is, I feel like personally that it's doing a disservice to the people that you hire if you hire them in a vacuum. So many times our business owners are just at their wits' end. They have not a second left in the day, and then they hire people out of lack of bandwidth. They weren't a good fit. That's unfair to both the business owner as well as the employee. And then they have no time to train them, and then they wonder why they leave. So one of the things that we talk about in this community is it's not a chicken or an egg. If you hire in a vacuum, not only is it not a good fit, it's not fair to either one of you. You'll never have a chance to train them, but also you don't ever have that opportunity to step out of your business and make the money to make sure they're paid and your business grows. So often we talk about hire really before you need them. Your runway is longer to make sure both of you are a good fit. You honor them by training them, and you also now have hours left to grow the business so that you can then make sure you have money to pay them and future employees. Our business owners get in such a chicken or egg scenario. Well, if I don't have time, then how can I hire? And I don't really have enough money right now. How can I hire? You're not ever going to have enough money unless you hire forward. So, it's been, this journey of hiring has changed so much, since COVID and since mental health was finally started to be paid attention to. And as business owners, we started really coming around and thinking about the life of the individual, not that we just have this job and why is nobody beating down our door? Well, that's because we just have a job. And from what you've taught us here today, that's people are looking for more than just a job. They're looking at a place of belonging. They're looking at a place of where they feel safe and that they really want that community, because let's be honest, a lot of times they and us a lot of times spend more hours at work than we do with our own family. So that is hugely, hugely valuable. Do we have any hands raised right now? Okay, what I want to do is, Kutina, I know that you've been so gracious. If you could put your contact, I know, so gracious. If you could put your contact information in the chat. And then also, because I know that I'm actually gonna pass your information along too, because we actually have several business owners that had to pop off that have asked me for your information and some that could not make it. I know 3, in fact, were asking for an HR connection. More so from kind of just some of the legal aspects of it. As well as some other things they're looking for. So we're gonna make sure and pass along your information. Is there anything that you want to offer today before we say bye to you?
Yeah, I think for me, one, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. This is the industry I love. I love you all. I don't know you all, but I see the
Okay.
faces. This is such work in this industry is just a labor of love, right? You know, when I say I have deep respect for owners, operators, founders. It's why I'm a W-2. I always tell everyone, you know, I couldn't do it. Every single day, it's remarkable. And I'm so thankful because it gives me employment. But, you know, this industry is the backbone of our country. So thank you all so much for what you do every single day. And my offering to you all is, I have a consulting business, so happy to do a 20-30 minute consultation to anyone here today. I am going to also add my phone number. Feel free to text me. I am super approachable. I tell everyone I am not your typical HR leader. I'm super unconventional. I like to think outside the box. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach. This is all about understanding your needs as an owner, as an operator, and thinking to yourself, what's next? What do I need to do? So everything is customized. And I really like to sit and get to learn you first and think about where are you going? What's your journey? Where have you been? What are your struggles? And then how do we make sure that, you stay on the path that you seek out to be on?
Thank you. That's truly extraordinary. I mean, don't you just love her giving, like where she's coming from? I'm telling you, business owners and people that do this, no matter what, even if they didn't get paid, it's different. It is completely different. So kind of you. Thank you so, so much. Everybody's thumbs up and hugs and all the love. Thank you again. And then also we'll make sure that you can also send them information as well for those people that attended this workshop so that you can have that information to send them.
Yeah, real quick, a big shout out to Heather. I'm sure you get so much praise and accolade from people, but thank you so much for guiding me through this process.
Oh, yeah. I feel so sorry for you because you got all the emails at once.
She stepped in for Rachel and Heather literally sent her an email saying, okay, we normally send all these, emails out. We're giving it all to you at once. We're going to drink from a fire hydrant. You ready?
I was able to power through this because of her energy. I was like, I feel your energy in New York. I have to make Heather proud.
We all want to.
I know. And then I felt so bad because, honestly, we just did not put in time at the beginning of the summit to sort of do the housekeeping stuff. And so we just started running later and later. And when you came in, I'm thinking, oh, Kutina, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you. The reason why that I wanted to see you on the screen, and I will say this to the people that had to leave too, this was a lifelong goal of mine since I started the coaching and consulting company 10 years ago. I wanted to do a summit. Didn't know how it would work out, did not know anything. And at one point we're just like, I hit screw it. And you guys know the word I really want to say, but it's being recorded. And said, we're just going to do this messy and we're going to do it imperfect. And who shows up, shows up. And oh my gosh, did not only you show up, but the speakers showed up. So I am in so much gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for spending the day with me. I hope that you learned a ton. The speakers we brought you have been absolutely amazing. And you guys know all my information if you need anything at all. Thank you. Again, you guys have a most amazing day and rest of your week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.